Good evening, hello, and welcome to the War Room. This is our continuing coverage of Russia's illegal incursion into the Ukraine. This is day 4 of hostilities, and you would hope that on a Sunday things would settle down a bit and the news would be slow. But no, they can't be slow. No, it's got to be busy, and it's got to be something that's probably going to keep us up for hours again. Because last night we were on until 5 a.m. off air, which is insane. But anyway, we have got a lot to cover. And like yesterday, I have made the cutoff for new information stop at about 3 a.m. Monday morning, Ukrainian time. We have got a lot to cover. The show prep and timing of all this is just Herculean. In an effort to help sort of polish and refine the format of the show and to make it a bit more user friendly and visually appealing, we've got I'm gonna give you more meat and less potato, so you're gonna get pictures and captions and things like that. But like I said, it's been a long day, and I'm not getting much sleep beforehand, and then I get up early, and then it's straight to calling people and talking to people and trying to make sure that every story that we get isn't just propaganda crap. But it's going to be unavoidable. There's going to be a little bit of it because that's part of war nowadays. It's just the misinformation of the side that's losing is going to water down the numbers, saying they're not losing as much, and the side that's winning is going to say that they're killing multitudes more than they actually are. Nobody's got outdated equipment. Everything's going fine. Da, rifle is fine. Crap like that, right? So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to start pulling in my panelists, as you're used to seeing. And I think I'll keep in tradition with the original flow of who I bring in at a time. So my first panelist, as usual, is Galilion Gonzalez, also known as Zorro117, formerly of Gun Channels, back when we used to have a Gun Channels. But anyway, he's out on the West Coast. He's a rancher, a farmer, and he's working to become a public educator, actually, too. So good evening to you. And probably AFK at the time. He's studying. So anyway, my next panelist, I think as per usual, Mike, Night Strike, also from Hit or Miss, Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock, and sometimes Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and sometimes even Sunday night strikes, depending on if the mood suits or if there's material to cover. Although I have sort of hijacked his free time for the last 4 days, so we're glad to have you as well.
It was mutual.
It's okay. I'm glad to have you as well. And you are out in South Carolina, and you are. I'm trying to cover the backgrounds a bit. So you're basically a freelance IT guy out in Charleston.
Yeah, freelance IT.
Okay. So the ability for a guy like you and me, because even though I went to psychology and sociology, I actually fell back on my IT work. So, the idea that getting information and corroborating it is actually quite easy for guys like us. So it's good to have two different intakes of this information, even under one show, which is great. Makes our jobs easier, collectively speaking, that is. So, all right. That being said, I will bring in our tradesman. This is Scott P79. He's actually north of the New England area, because if people say New England, everyone thinks Massachusetts. When I think New England, I think everything from Massachusetts to Maine, like that whole region up there, which is probably insulting to those in Maine, but sorry. Anyway, he's a tradesman.
It's insulting when people add New York to New England.
I don't do that. I don't do that. That's too big of a state, physically.
Well,
but anyway, where did I just derailed myself. Oh, so anyway, Scott's a tradesman, works with his hands, works with tools, does HVAC, heating, oil, you name it. So he's sometimes in the most disgusting places on earth just to keep the people who live just above that basement comfortable. And you get to meet a myriad of different people: servicemen, tradesmen, military, retired, Ukrainians, Russians. His FFL's a Russian, but he's a good Russian. Wink. So anyway, good
He's
evening
a
to
Russian
you.
that served in Afghanistan, so
There you go.
you don't like Russia.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
And last but not least, I have my Polish contingent, the Warsaw Patriot, who just got dragged out again. Hang on, let me do this again. There we go. Hopefully that sticks this time. I believe you're out in Florida, right?
Me?
Yeah.
No, Midwest.
Oh, okay. So you're in my time zone. Okay, that's even better. All right. So Warsaw Patriot, known in panels of Hit or Miss and Zeke Shoots,
Yep.
and resident AK guy.
I'm more than just an AK person, by the way, on both platforms, on the AR and the AK.
Ah, so you're like,
He's
I'm just
also
not.
known as the Polski partisan.
Oh, see,
No, that's just the title Night's Red just came up with it right there.
Oh, now my other buddy, I call him the Polish Hammer because he's a weightlifter.
Ooh.
So anyway,
That's good. That's good.
so that rounds out our panel. There's going to be 5 of us. I've been extending invites to one of my week in review co-hosts, but apparently by 8 p.m. my time, it's warm milk and a binky, and he goes to bed. So it must suck
Well, he's
being in
lucky he
his.
still wakes up in the morning.
Yeah, say it must suck to be
it's
in
true.
close to your 60s, I guess. Anyhow, in keeping with trying to keep this as serious as possible, the photo that you're seeing in the background for today's show is actually a disabled, they call it what, the Katusha or something like that?
Katusha.
Yeah, this was actually captured, disabled, you name it, in, oh boy, I'm going to fail to name this right.
Mm.
This was in Kharkiv because, was it the Russians took it over? I want to say
Ukrainians
they
just
took it
back,
over.
didn't they?
I think they took it back.
Yeah, they just took it back. I heard today.
So anyway, there's that. That's the Katusha sitting in front of Kharkiv, and you can see in the circles there that that's how they disabled it. They probably just dropped a grenade in there and blew it open.
Probably.
I've got pictures of APCs and stuff too, and it's kind of disheartening because they almost look like Pterodyne Gurkhas, Pterodyne Gurkhas, but they're on fire, which is funny because they ran out of gas, and yet they're still on fire. This is just like the Afghanistan thing where I'm demanding where the hell's my MRAP if we can just leave them there for, everyone else. But anyway, like I said, we do have a lot to cover. I did get the timeline set up correctly this time, and I've also got a lot of pictures to show you guys today as we go through this.
Sean, maybe once this thing blows over, maybe we could buy some gently used T90s from the Ukrainians.
I'm okay with that.
And maybe some more parts kits.
Maybe some more parts kits too.
Well, we missed our chance. We could have just flew out to Ukraine and just picked up like a whole crate of AKs, but they need them more than we need them. Let's be honest.
They need them more than we need them right now.
At least they could start making production on their stuff and as well as ours.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, the fact of the matter is they're getting a giant influx of arms now. We're going to cover that today.
Is it all 5.6 stuff?
It's coming from the EU. It's coming from
Poland,
yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me it's a mixed batch then.
Yeah. It is a mixed batch, but it's a mixed batch of really good goodies that you want to fight the Russians with.
I want to see a story like 2 weeks from now where a person picks up military aid and they're going to pick up what looks like an AK and it's going to have the 2 crossed cannons on the side of the receiver. I'll be like, what? What is that? PSA logo for those of you who are wondering what the hell I'm on about.
Yeah, no, I know.
Anyway, so
I'm in the Palmetto State.
Yesterday I had started by pushing the timeline up to the end of the United States time zone's day, right? But because of the fact that Ukraine is 8 hours ahead of us, or ahead of me, that a lot of the times bleed over into the following early hours of the morning. And coincidentally, because the Russian infantry isn't really doing a lot of night ops on the ground. They're using like jets to do like missile attacks at night. Sometimes these early morning hours are where things actually happen and kick off. So, for instance, the first story I'm going to bring up, I think, was close to the last story that we mentioned last night, and it was about 2:35 a.m. local time in Ukraine. Russian missiles had hit an oil depot 24 miles south of Kiev in Vasilkov. Vasilkov. Parliament
So
member Anna Pertova had pled with the U.S. and the EU to create a no-fly zone over the Ukraine. The Kiev Post, an English-language Ukrainian newspaper, had condemned the attack as, quote, another war crime, and shared video taken closer to the scene that showed smoke billowing into the night sky. Vasilkov is about 24 miles south of Kiev. The city is also host to the Ukrainian military air base. Gossamel? I think it was Gossamel. So we'll start with that. That was at 2:35 in the morning. Things got a bit quiet after that. And so what ended up happening is the news started coming in a bit slower. By 1:05 a.m. my time, in Central Standard Time, it was 9 o'clock in the morning in in Ukraine. Uh, there was a report from the Russian Interior Ministry that Putin has been monitoring developments in Ukraine from where he's hiding in the Urals, right? And he's furious and like throwing things and screaming at everybody. And because he's frustrated that his military invasion to a much smaller country isn't going so smoothly. And one of the European Union officials who basically reviewed this intelligence report, he's pretty much corroborating, what he's being told. And it was like Riho Teres, a former defense chief in Estonia and a member of the European Parliament, detailed the contents of the documents in a Twitter thread Saturday. He thought that the whole war would be easy and everything would be done in 1 to 4 days, which would be today. Instead, Ukrainian military members and civilians arming themselves with guns and Molotov cocktails have been working hard to fend off Russian forces who have been entering Ukraine from several directions since Thursday. Of course, I mean, if you're invading my country, I'm pretty sure the people aren't just going to like stand down and let you do it. I mean, we did talk about how the country was sort of split up into thirds. Like fundamentally, they were split up into thirds. There was like a third of the people who were just like, look, just let them come in so we can get back to our lives. Those kind of people. And then there was people like, I'll fight to the death. And then there was just there was this crowd of, no, we should join Russia. So it was like third, and third. Well, the fighting third, apparently you're winning, because apparently that's all it takes too, because they've been stymieing that push for 4 days.
Those that are on the middle of the fence are finally coming around to fight with the other side.
I think so. Like the middle of the fence guys were just, look, let's just get this shit over with. That's kind of their mantra to this. They were just like, look, if they're gonna win, let them win. If they're gonna lose, then make it decisive and get them the hell out of here so I can go back to work.
I guess then they saw Ukrainians dying. They're like, you know what? Screw this. I should go out and do something.
Yeah, because I mean, it could have been a friend of theirs or a family member or a relative, or a stray missile might have hit something that was actually, important to them, like the job that they wanted to go back to.
Or that like an orphanage or something like that.
Exactly. I think the statistics yesterday, up until day 3, was 33 children have died since this began.
Well,
Either
that's not all who died today.
No. The numbers are pretty sobering. So anyway, we're gonna push forward. I'm even though we've got a lot to cover here, I'm gonna try to just bang through them very quickly, because it's Sunday and everyone's trying to just mentally settle in for what's going to be their lives and their week. So I'm trying not to weigh it down and stress people out today, but a lot did happen, so we're going to try to trudge through this as efficiently as possible. So by 3:10 a.m. Local time for me, I was still up. I think, Mike, you were still up a bit. Scott was definitely still up. And our friend Patrick was up after having a bottle of vodka. And we tried to just make light of a bad situation while we were still gathering facts and statistics and stories for
Yeah.
today. But
We got a little into it because Scott was posting some pretty good memes.
good God, Patrick was on a rant last night.
Oh
I
yeah,
know.
he was.
Like
Oh, I know.
when
How
he
bad do you
drinks
think he
vodka,
felt at
that's
this
what
morning?
Russian collusion looks like. When G.I. Joe himself, when Hank Hill himself starts colluding with Russian vodka, he turns into one of them. It's the weirdest thing. Anyway, 3:10 a.m., which would have been 11:10 a.m. Ukrainian local time, the mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, former world heavyweight champion, undefeated, announced in Kiev, or that Kiev had been completely. Oh, sorry, I got that backwards. He announced that Kiev has extended their curfew for all citizens of the capital city, uh,
Mhm.
while the Russians continued to lay the city under siege. So basically, the original or the revised curfew called for all residents to go and lock themselves indoors by 5 p.m. until 8 a.m. The original curfew, I think, was 8 p.m. to like 8 a.m. or something. So he backed it out 3 extra hours. Because I mean, the thing is the they were noticing that the Russians were the most active between or at dawn and at dusk, because apparently they're not very good with night vision, or they just don't have very good night vision, or they don't know what to do with their night vision, or it just doesn't work. So they're trying to maximize their combat effectiveness at the end and the beginning of the day and low light situations before they can't see themselves. So he backed up the curfew just in case, because people were still getting clipped um, on city streets, because that's when they were like, post dinner time, sunset, dusk, and all of a sudden the missile attacks begin, stray fire starts to happen. We've seen it. We've been watching the feeds for 4 days now, and that's all you see and that's all you hear. So anyway, curfew's been backed up an extra 3 hours. You don't see Ukrainian people complaining about this, though. They're not complaining about having to be locked down. This is a different kind of lockdown. This is what a real public safety lockdown is supposed to look like, right? These
Yeah.
people are fighting for their lives. They know that they shouldn't be in the streets at certain times of the day, because that's when they're going to be the least effective to defend anyway. And to be perfectly honest, if you're in a third or fourth or seventh-story building and you see, a small Russian troop like battalion, or just even a small like squad walking around like the three blind mice, you can pick them off from your window anyway. So whatever. And don't think that's not happening.
Well, most of the Ukrainian citizens are I guess our level of militia now
Yeah. Well,
because
they're
they've been armed.
well, they're not a well organized militia, but
No,
they are a well
they're an
motivated
unorganized.
one.
They're unorganized but motivated.
They're very well organized or well motivated, and I think honestly, Klitschko's doing an amazing job.
They,
He's Go ahead.
they may not be organized, but they'll put up a good fucking fight, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's well motivated for sure.
yeah.
And plus their mayor and the president, they've been very vocal. They've been very visible. Like you get these pictures of early mornings where Zelensky's like, he's pulling a Dom from Fast and the Furious. He's sticking his arms out and he's like, "Yo, I'm still here." Like you didn't get me, that kind of thing. He's very defiant, and that's a good morale booster for those people who have been staying up all night and fighting for their home. Like they're tired, they're demoralized by gunfire or whatever, and then the next morning their leader stands up and he's like, "Yo, I'm still here. You know, keep fighting. I'm still here fighting with you, right alongside you." The best part is, and I think I have a picture of it. I may have a picture of it. The former president of Ukraine is also on the streets fighting. He is
You mean the
50.
former puppet?
No, like he was a
No.
liked president. He was the
Oh,
one
the
before
one they liked.
Zelensky. He's 56 years old, gray hair, overweight, probably got a dicky hip or something.
He wasn't the one that got kicked out of
Right.
office.
Okay,
He
the other
full
one.
battle rattle, dude. Anyway, that's coming up. I've got that in 2
Although he
updates from
should
here.
surround himself with some better trained guards.
So, let's fast forward an extra 3 minutes. So now it's 11:13 a.m. local time, and Ukraine state media and social media people. So the thing is like that, we're always told don't believe everything you see on TV. That's fine. But when a bunch of people pull out their phones and start recording on TikTok, that starts corroborating what the news is showing you, so you can say, I guess that's legit, right?
Yeah.
Well, at 11:13 a.m., Ukraine immortalized its own version of the Tiananmen Square style tank man on Saturday. It was a video from Saturday, right? A defiant Ukrainian appeared to confront a Russian military convoy in the northeastern town of Bakhmut. The video shows the man jumping onto the tank as it continues forward, then kneeling in front of it as it comes to a stop. Like, even the Russian drivers are just like, nah, I ain't running this dude over. Are you crazy? So they just stopped. And then, like, all the other bystanders ran over and pulled him off the tank so they could all collectively yell at the convoy. Like, they're throwing sticks and rocks and shit at it. But yeah, they've got their own version of Tiananmen Square Tank Man, except he was not run over.
No.
So PNW Woods is out there, and he's saying, how big of balls does the president of Ukraine have? I need ammo, not a ride. He was quoted as saying that, I think, the morning of day 2.
If the meme is to be believed, it's big enough to be seen on radar.
Well, I've got a lot of photos from radar today, so we're going to be sharing those too. We're just not going to show you Zelensky's balls. No matter how big and glorious they might be, I don't know.
And no matter if he's carrying them in a wheelbarrow or not.
No, that's Stan's dad. That was a good meme, by the way.
That was.
All right, so 2 minutes after that, like these updates early in the morning, that's another reason why I didn't go to bed, because they were just like bing, 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 like a bunch of updates just started hitting. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm gonna like stop every once in a while and just recognize the chat. And he was like, he could have taken a plane full of cash and just bailed, and he didn't, which is true. So anyway,
See, that's the difference between a Ukrainian president and an Afghani president.
I don't know. I was gonna say that's what a real leader looks like. So anyway, 2 minutes later, so now it's 11:15, but it was around 3:15 Central Time. Canadian officials confirmed that their airspace is still open to Russian commercial flights. Quote, at this time, Canada's airspace remains open to Russian carriers. However, the department is actively monitoring the current situation and working closely with key allies, including the United States. That last part I just heard wah 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 with a little flippy top head like Terrence and Phillip. Anyway, that was from Transport Minister Omar Al-Gabra's office. What a hearty and wholesome Canadian name.
Yeah.
When I read this story, I'm sorry, I thought, wait a minute, you're still allowing Aeroflot to fly into your country, because when Russia flies to the United States, they cross Canadian airspace 5 or 6 times a day to do that, right? And I read this and I thought, wait a minute. Red Dawn is still a possibility, isn't it?
Mm.
Like, what if they just Aeroflot, I don't know, I don't want to say a battalion, but like just, yeah, okay, fuck it. Let's say they fly in a battalion of like, plainclothes spies.
Sean, looking at how well their military is doing right now over the Ukraine, we've got more armed people here in the United States than they do in the Ukraine.
I'm just
I
saying.
don't think they'll last long.
I'm just saying, like, if what Patrick's theory yesterday is to be believed, maybe their elites are coming here instead, right? I don't believe it. Trust me. I'm just fucking around.
I mean, even if they did send their elites here, even the homeland troops we have here would be able to take them out.
So yeah.
Never mind. You'd have every civilian and their brother shooting at them also.
Well,
yeah, because the minute they hear we got Russians on American soil, they're going to be standing in line for hunting tags.
I
Oh,
suppose.
they're not even gonna have to issue those.
I know.
Yeah.
I suppose. I don't know. Just like the stuff that's going on lately right now is making the Soviet army look like it's just a ragtag group of amateurs, right? Like everyone's starting to like
Well,
this.
that pretty
There
much
was a
is.
chat
Look,
on Zeke
everyone is
Shoots the
finding
other
out
day.
that the Russian Federation army is not the Soviet army. They may have some of the equipment, but they just don't have that gusto.
They
that
don't have the
Soviets
discipline.
had.
They're missing the discipline. But the thing is like there was a chat on Zeke Shoots a couple weeks back about a guy who was messing with an AK and he couldn't get it to work right or something, but he kept messing with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this moment where Zeke is like, "Look, I'm trying." He's like, I'm not trying to make fun of the guy's technique or anything. I'm trying to find out genuinely if there's a mechanical issue, right?" But it turned like not even within an hour, it was like, but he was full on making fun of the guy's technique, and I look at this and I'm sitting there going, "This is like chapter 2 of the quote Iraqi, what is it, the elite Republican Guard." And they just got steamrolled. So maybe it's the same thing. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
All I know is Canadian airspace is still open to Russian flights.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. So, as I said earlier, 12:16, high noon, Ukrainian time, there was a photo released of Petro Poroshenko, aged 56, the former Ukrainian president, was spotted among citizen defenders in full battle gear. He was quoted as saying, "We are in the center of Kiev, and we are here to protect the Ukraine," who was seen wearing his bulletproof vest and flak helmet. He said Russian forces at the time, so basically he was the man on the street, right? He had
Right.
confirmed that Russian forces were less than 1.2 miles away from the center of the city that he was defending. So they have gotten there. They're just not taking it. Like I guess they're not coming in there in numbers or in force to meet their objectives. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been around to even tell you that. And then that information wouldn't have been able to make its way to the web where everyone can catch it and see it and go, "Hey, look, that's the old president and he's fighting with his people too." How cool is that? So that was at like around
Yeah.
high noon, like quarter after noon. All right. So a few minutes later, it's like following the tradition of mad updates. It was almost like using an RSS reader. So 3 minutes after that, so it's about 12:20-ish local time there. Um, Ukrainian forces had entered Kharkiv, like where this picture came from, for the backdrop. The country's second largest city of 1.4 million. It lies 12 miles away from the Russian border. So it's actually a pretty easy objective to get to if you're Russia. 12 miles away, right? So it's 480 miles east of Kiev. So if you think about the map, it's way over on the right side of the country.
Yep.
Troops began to amass on Thursday. Like they were sitting there, sort of like the rest of all the other Russian forces had been for weeks. They had begun amassing on the border on Thursday. And their attack actually began Sunday morning. At the time, when I got this tidbit of news at 12:20 p.m. their time, there was only one reported casualty, and it came from this building here that I'm about to show you on screen. And it was an elderly person who got hit by, I guess, a piece of that building, and probably just head trauma or something. But it was like the building got damaged. The person was, dying essentially. But there were 60 other people in that building that were sort of in the basement levels, and they turned out all okay. They're the ones who actually reported the person who died. But like, we haven't seen many pictures of actual damage on location or whatever. Like, they all sort of look like this picture here. But that's kind of the battlefield that they're at, isn't it? It's urban warfare. So this is mainly what you're going to see. You're not going to see the highway of death. So anyway, that's our first caption. That's the building. Total casualty 1, and the other 60 made it just fine. They're hunkered down in the basement levels of that high-rise building type thing there. An hour later, a report had come out, and this is kind of sad news. And what was funny is Squib sent this to me. Squib sent part of this to me, but the photo that I have that I can show you to sort of corroborate, or to, I guess, yeah, it's to corroborate and actually prove that this did happen. Oh wait, where is that picture? Uh-oh. Did I forget to put that in there?
You
Damn
did.
it. Oh, no, here it is. Here it is. It's just in the wrong spot. Okay, so the only remaining Antonov AN-225. We talked about this plane the other day. It's called the Miria.
Oh, no, not the Miria.
The Miria.
Yep.
It has been officially declared destroyed, according to the Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Because of Russian troops.
Dmytro Kuleba. He said that this happened during the attack on the Gostomel Air Force Base, like the day prior, but people weren't sure if it was just propaganda or BS or whatever. But this picture here pretty much illustrates the situation. Like you can take these images and these little pieces that this guy had highlighted, and you just mix. This is a shot of the plane, in its normal berth in this hangar. And then the top view here was satellite photos of that hangar that was destroyed, and it's a perfect match. Like the plane is in there.
Trying to steal it or something?
No, they attacked the air base to try to take the air base, and the plane was just sitting there because that's where it's stored. So it's just
I think they actually attacked the aircraft intentionally.
Possibly. I mean, it's the biggest hangar there.
You can't miss it because it's the biggest hangar there. Also, it's a point of national pride for the Ukrainians.
Yeah, they could have done it as a demoralizing thing, but then again, if you captured it, now you have the world's largest transport aircraft, and you could use that to bring in tons of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. It wasn't flyable at that point.
It was just sitting there, but it's gone now.
No, it broke one of the bogey wheels or something.
It was the Antonov AN-225 Miria.
Correct.
But you know what the NATO codenamed it?
No.
The Cossack.
They should have just called it. They should have just called it the Triple G then. Anyway.
I know.
So yeah, it is kind of sad because it had like legendary status in like aircraft geek circles. It was the biggest plane on Earth, basically.
At one point, it carried one of the Soviet space shuttles.
I think it carried one of ours too, didn't it?
No, the Soviet ones.
It was just the Soviet ones.
The Soviet ones looked. Honestly, the Soviet ones
they looked a lot like the ones we had. Those two derelict ones we talked about the other day, for instance.
That are sitting out.
Those are the two.
Uzbekistan.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, it is kind of sad because it was like. It's almost like saying the last surviving Tucker torpedo has been totaled. That kind of thing. It had a legendary following. And it was like a mythical thing, right? So, anyway, it's gone. Whether or not they'll ever make anything even remotely close to that, it's kind of hard to say because the plane that held that moniker long before that was the Spruce Goose.
There is a second one that was never finished.
Probably scrapped by now.
The president made a statement saying that we will rebuild it.
Well, yeah. I mean, if it's only got damage, then it's possibly fixable. But then again, if the fire burned that whole hangar, then
sure
that whole frame is not airworthy.
If they want to.
It's gonna be a cost issue at that point, though. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's just. If it burned, the frame's no longer airworthy. If it's just like the tail got snapped off because of falling girders, maybe.
No, there was legit fire.
Yeah, there's fire. Like I want to see the after fire photos, which right now asking somebody to go take pictures of it just so the rest of the world can see what condition it's left in during a war, not practical. Not practical. Hey, while you're in there, that kind of thing.
Yeah, while you're in there, would you go and check out that plane?
Yeah. I want to take a pause for a second and just kind of recognize everybody that's filed into the chat. So we say good evening to PNW Woods, Fine Ape, Mad Sexy, and I'm pretty sure other people are just quietly sitting there lurking. Shady Hill Homestead actually was the first person in there today.
Hey, Sean, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
After we're done with this live, I want to go to my channel. I want to show you the video I just posted in honor of the 13 that lost their lives in Ukraine, and to many of those that same.
The Snake Island 13?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Snake Island 13, and to many others that lost their lives. God bless those people of Ukraine.
All right, we'll do that for sure.
You gotta hand it to those guys.
All right, let's see. So about 16, 17, quarter hour later, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky on Sunday had called for Russia to lose its voting power as a member of the UN Security Council, alleging that the attack on his country, which started last week, amounts to nothing more than criminal actions and signs of genocide. I think what he's demanding is a perfectly reasonable request.
Well, if one of the Security Council members is doing some shady shit, they shouldn't be able to downvote against themselves.
Right, and funnily enough, one of the last stories I've got for you today involves a UN Security Council vote, and guess what Russia did?
Downvoted it.
No.
Exactly. Wait till you get to hear what it's about, though, too. So you'll see. We'll get there.
More than that happened today.
A lot more than that happened today. So I finally got some sleep, and then I had to backtrack this morning. And at around 6:30 in the morning my time, which would have been 2:30, so we're into that lull after corporate America has lunch and everyone's just sort of like, is it 5 o'clock yet? Well, during a war, it's a little different, right? So anyway, around that time, the U.S. was now involved in the business of, quote, pulling a Putin, as Marco Rubio appealed to Russian military leaders to, quote, think very carefully before following your president's orders, suggesting that they too can face international war crimes charges. This is exactly similar to what Putin did, appealing to the Ukrainian military to stand down days earlier. He adds that Putin is 2 years shy of his life expectancy of a Russian male, but you will spend the rest of your lives evading an international tribunal for committing his crimes. What a savage.
That is kind of savage.
Isn't it? Like, welcome to America, Marco Rubio. Where have you been for the last couple of years? Like, where did this, aggression come from? I like it.
We need more of it.
We need more of it. We need an entire Congress of it right now.
We do.
But we don't have it because they're all woke or wearing dresses claiming to be men or women that they're not.
Using the women's bathroom.
Yes. All right, so after that, I had breakfast, checked again about an hour later. It was about 3:30 Ukrainian time. After 4 days of Russia invading his nation, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky says that he's growing frustrated with an apparent lack of international action. So he's seeking his own team of supporters. He publicly announced that he's trying to create an international response team. Zelensky hopes to draw volunteers who will, quote, defend Ukraine and world order as part of the International Legion of Territorial Defense of Ukraine. Is he trying to create the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen here? This was a quote.
I think he's trying to create the Condor Legion.
Possibly, because he was this came from the Ukraine Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. So this isn't just one person saying this. Everyone is relaying this same request. Thanks for calling it the way it is. You're very welcome.
And speaking of that, if you look at the last one I put into War Never Changes, it feeds right into your current line of thinking.
Possibly. So anyway, those interested in helping should seek their own country's respective diplomatic offices, he encouraged. Now, I know why he's doing it, and you got to admire the guy for doing it. But this is setting a really dangerous precedent here. Because if he pulls in volunteers from NATO nations, representatives of NATO nations, right? If he pulls in Germans, if he pulls in Americans, if he pulls in French people, right? This will give Putin an excuse to justify some of his actions, or even worse, his aggression towards the host nations of captured and summarily executed volunteers. Because remember, they're ditching the death penalty now, and they're looking for excuses to blame NATO for something, right? So it's like he's asking people to volunteer to fight for his country. But if you're from a NATO nation and you're captured by the Russians, first of all, your life is forfeit. And second of all you're
Mhm.
doing is you're fueling Putin's excuse to come after
Well,
you.
that's
Not
that.
really.
Not really, considering Putin's forces are now killing foreigners in Ukraine.
Well, yeah, and he's also
And
got
he has
Serbian
brought.
volunteers.
He's, oh
Well,
no,
no,
he's
no,
got worse than
no,
Serbians.
no.
He's got Chechens.
Yeah, yeah.
The problem is,
you did post that earlier.
I posted this earlier. He killed non-combatants.
Yeah, well, civilians are dying too. I mean, it's just the point is
No, he
you
targeted.
don't want to give him any extra excuse to justify his atrocities. I guess that's what I'm saying. Because it's like, right now he's trying to say what good is the UN and what good is NATO, Ukraine. Like, he's telling Ukraine, what good is UN and what good is NATO, because they're not coming to help you, right? But then when they do come to help you, then he's like, why am I a part of this group that is helping trying to defeat me? So it's like he'll do something
He's not.
even more extreme. Don't give him a reason to do that, or don't give him a justification. So like, this is the problem, because it's like, this is something that the Ukraine has to do because they're cornered into having to do this. They're fighting for their survival and their very lives, right? So it's like a real catch-22. I completely understand why he's doing it. I'm even in agreement with it. It's just, if you see the wood for the trees, the geopolitical implications of this are incredibly dangerous,
Well, as
especially
long
if
as
Russia
they're not,
succeeds.
as long as they are not active duty members of the military, the membership shouldn't matter because they are literally joining the Ukrainian military.
Yeah,
No different than actually the United States does.
No, see,
We
that's the
allow
thing.
foreigners to join our military.
Yeah, George did that, but that's the thing. He's not doing that. He created a group called the International Legion of Territorial Defense. He's creating his own UN force.
Trust me, when you go into it, you're joining the Ukrainian military. You're taking orders.
You're taking orders from
military.
Ukrainian officials, yes, but
are enlisting in
by
the Ukrainian
nomenclature.
Sean, remember the French Foreign Legion takes people from anywhere.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, he's doing the same thing for the Ukrainian military.
Right,
And
but
they are
if a
definitely
French
part of
Foreign
the
Legion
French
soldier is
military.
captured, that capturing nation will blame France. You see what I'm saying? They will
Yes,
still
that's what I'm
summarily,
saying.
they'll still summarily execute the person that they've got, and then they'll say
No, they can't.
they can. You're forgetting that almost every combatant ever fought on the wrong side of a battle never abides by the rules of the Hague Convention. Ever.
Or
Torture, hollow points, explosives, Willie Pete rounds. We're going to get into
What
Willie
happened
Pete's here
to the-
shortly, too.
What happened to the U.S. pilots that got shot down during the Persian Gulf War? Were they executed? No. Why? Because Saddam knew if he lost, they would take his head.
They still took his head, sir.
I know. It just took a little longer than what you would think.
It made a really funny twanging sound. Anyway, I'm just saying, like,
Okay, Bosnia.
if you volunteer, I salute you for such a noble sacrifice, honestly, to do that, to be bigger than bigger than a man individually and bigger than the nation that you're leaving to save another one. It's very selfless. It's very, very honorable. It's just, if you get caught, you
Just know
really
you're
have
gonna
to
get
think
killed.
about it. It doesn't end with your execution. It ends with your nation getting the gun pointed at it also, because you represented that nation once they figured out where you came from. And you can try to downplay it as much as you want, but the fact of the matter is if Putin caught a guy from New York, thinking he's Billy Badass, and then executes him, then he will come after the United States in rhetoric or in propaganda or whatever. They'll put up videos of them beating this guy to death nice and slow on camera, saying, don't send any more Americans or this will happen to you. It's a tool he can use to demoralize his opponent. And that's what's
Yep.
scary.
And what do you
Well-
think the reaction of Americans would be to that?
It still doesn't even matter. Because
no,
then
Sean,
what's
it
going to
does.
happen? What's going to happen
Whenever
there?
a foreign country kills Americans, what always happens? America goes and stomps that country.
Yeah,
That's what
America
happens.
starts
Into
pushing
the
their
ground.
political leaders to finally get involved. I get it. Okay, that's how World War I started. That's how World War II started. I get that.
Mhm.
We
Oh.
tried to stay out of it, but we tried to profiteer from it. And then when American interests, including lives, finally start getting lost, then the people won't stand for it, and then they bend the president in charge over a barrel to go to a war that he can't stomach in the first place. And then we go months, years, or maybe, well, months or years later, where the battle is already well established, the lines are already well dug in, and we have to fight 10 times harder and lose more people trying to climb that hill and then take it. Whereas if we were involved on day one, we'd have just shock and audit and called it a day. Just saying. It's just an opinion. I'm not saying it's gospel. Anyway, let's move on, because we got a lot to cover. 3:32 p.m. Ukrainian local time, so I'm still at breakfast here. And I did this to sort of break the tension of the day. So the way I quoted this was, not that it really matters, but Vladimir Putin has been officially stripped of his title as the honorary president and ambassador of the International Judo Federation. It did happen. They made that announcement. They were like, you're out. And that was the beginning of a lot of non-military or non-sanctioned events today of getting expelled or banned or kicked out or things like that. I was reading stories about like a giant bar in Las Vegas took all their bottles of Russian vodka and on TV bottle poured it down the gutter in front of everybody in some symbolic showing of the support for Ukraine. I mean, it was a couple $1,000s worth of vodka, right? But the symbolism was there, and it was like, okay, that makes a Ukrainian soldier, if he catches it on the news, feel good. Like, hey, look, they're trashing their Russian shit over there. So, I'm not going to burn my sober jacket. No, I wanted it too much. Sorry. Also around 3:30 p.m. Ukrainian time, Russian security forces. This is the updated statistic. And I know you said it was like 2,000 in a day, but I've got the total figure.
Actually, the total figure is much higher now. Much higher than even
3,093 people
Nope.
between Thursday and 3:30 p.m. Sunday, when the anti-war protests began in its cities early Sunday morning. Crowds in Moscow and St. Petersburg gathered in the streets last week, with some chanting "No war." And I do actually have a picture for this. I forgot to post it while I was doing that, but here it is.
There's an update on this. There's an update to this. It says more than 5,000 demonstrators detained.
Possibly. I mean, yeah, St. Petersburg and Moscow are big cities.
Yeah.
But you see the patch on the back of that guy's jacket? Yeah. Yeah. It's those guys. I'm not going to say it, but you know what I'm talking about. It's those guys. Police detained a demonstrator outside or during an action against Russia's attack on Ukraine in St. Petersburg. This woman was picked up and like full Nelsoned and then dragged away. These guys, like, you can make fun of what's on the back of that guy's jacket because a Cyrillic N is an H, but when these guys show up, you be somewhere else. That's what I've been told by, like, I've got a couple of friends that live in St. Petersburg, and the thing they told me is when Oman shows up, be somewhere else. Like, you don't want to be around. They're like the bouncer you don't want to run into. They're always angry. Probably because of what it says on the back of their jacket. But anyway, I digress.
Yep.
Okay, so about a quarter of an hour later, so we're about 3:45, so we're winding down the afternoon in Ukraine. So this is where you're probably starting to hear the Russian war machine begin to start up and warm up, because the ground troops typically do this at dusk. That's when they're like the most active. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky announced Sunday morning that the nation's government had completed its application to the International Court of Justice. It's the highest legal authority of the United Nations. Ukraine has submitted its application against Russia to the ICJ. Russia must be held accountable for manipulating the notion of genocide to justify aggression. What he should have said there is Russia should be held accountable for lying about genocide to justify their aggression. Because that's what this is about, right? Putin says that there was a genocide occurring in the Donetsk region of Russian separatists, and yet there was not a single shred of evidence to corroborate that accusation. And that was his justification to turn a training exercise into a full-on invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And last time I checked, didn't his Russian citizens even called it out?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, the ones that weren't gag ordered, but yeah. So he says, we request an urgent decision ordering Russia to cease all military activity now and expect trials to start next week. Now, that's an angry president making a demand. Clearly, he doesn't know how bureaucracy works, especially on an international level. They ain't starting shit next week. I'm telling you right now. It just ain't going to happen. As much as you'd like it to. About an hour later, this is the scary part. This is the bad part. This is the part that's scrolling across the bottom of your screen. 4:46 p.m. Ukrainian time, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that he had raised the alert status for his nuclear attack forces to, quote, special regime of combat duty as Russia and Ukraine battle for the fourth day. Putin ordered the Russian defense minister and the chief of military's general staff to put the nuclear deterrent forces in a special regime of combat duty. The move signals tensions could boil over into a nuclear war. I'm going to expand on this later down the show. He is right now threatening a nuclear escalation, says a former Defense Intelligence Agency officer, Rebecca Koffler. This is a veiled threat, or maybe such a veiled threat. He just met with his chief of general staff and minister of defense. He is now escalating this conflict into a nuclear domain in order to what he thinks is de-escalation, so he can try to topple Kiev's regime quickly.
Right.
I don't think you're going to convince them by bringing more fire to the fire. No. They're just going to dig in their heels even harder.
Put out normal fire.
It's just this is the theme of today's show is escalation run amok, because we talk about this in like 2A circles, self-defense shooting, justifications, or when to use justified use of lethal force. Like, you're carrying a gun, which means you're carrying responsibility of massive proportions on your hip, and you can escalate a situation out of control incredibly quickly with just a few wrong moves. You start, shooting your mouth off, that person starts shooting their mouth off, you start fidgeting with your holster, they're quicker to the draw than you are. That's rapid escalation, right? You don't want that. Well, what's happening right here is more of that on a geopolitical scale. Right now, Putin has literally just pulled his smoke wagon out, and he's pointing it right at Ukraine by ordering like a nuclear response, essentially. Mm-hmm. And what I'm about to tell you towards the end of the show further proves it. Mm-hmm. Because once you hear what Belarus did today, now it starts to make sense. Anyway, we will get to that.
Nuclear.
We will get to that. So anyway, around the same time, local U.S. journalists on the ground had confirmed that as the fourth day of hostilities began to wind down into the evening hours, that the Ukrainian government and the military and the communication system between both are still intact and technically still fully in control of the capital city of Kiev. So Squib was asking this a lot yesterday, and I know he was pushing for an answer because he wanted to see something that shows him what we're seeing or what we're hearing every day. And he was like, for a massive scale invasion, you sure don't see a lot of Russian troops like lined up in columns. And he was right. But it was because of the way that they operate in odd hours. Like, this is a very unconventional attack. He's part of an era where there's a certain way you do things. And apparently in Soviet Russia, this is not how they do these things anymore. Like, they do them very differently now. And so we had our own journalists confirm the thing that the Russian or then the Ukrainian journalists have been trying to tell us for days. They were like, we still got this. And technically, yeah, they do. So, I mean, they're probably killing 10 Russians for every Ukrainian lost, right? Otherwise,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have such a clear, they wouldn't be in such a good position by day 4. All military analysts expected Kiev to fall by today, and it's not even close to it. The president is still being visual and defiant. The former president, a 56-year-old man in full battle rattle, he's still visual and defiant. The mayor and the mayor and his other heavyweight champion boxer brother, they're visual and defiant and incredibly patriotic. Like, it's going to be a sad day if those guys get clipped, honestly, because I mean they're just supermen if you think about it. Like what they were before they were politicians, and now that they're politicians, and now that they're national defenders, like Superman, Ukrainian Superman. That's what they are. All 4 of them, like the 2 brothers, the mayor, or the 2 brothers and the 2 presidents. That's what leadership actually is supposed to look like. We don't have anything that even remotely looks like that here right now. Not even close. Closest thing I've got is Governor Hot Wheels in Texas. And I mean, we're going to give him like a tracked, lower body tank that he can slip into, like Professor Xavier or something if, we ever go to war. And he'll probably fight in it too. He is pretty cool. So anyway, the next part I'm going to talk about, I'm going to have to explain a bit because I'm going to use a terminology that most of you probably never heard of. But at about 9 minutes to 6, so we're talking like dinner time, right? Sundown, low light. This is when the Russians are starting to spool up their war machine, full force for the evening, for night ops or whatnot. Hang on, I got to respond to this. There we go. Once an unconfirmed declaration, Turkey again announces that Russia's actions in Ukraine constitute a war and will act accordingly. This came from the foreign minister Mevlut Cavusoglu. No, sorry. I didn't say that right. It's okay. It's Cavusoglu. Sorry, I can't do that one.
Which one is it? Let me see.
Mevlut Cavusoglu.
Evan Kelescu.
Thank you. Because I was
thinking that's pronounced.
The way it's spelled is just like Hedo Turkoglu. Like the way his name is spelled, the basketball player Hedo Turkoglu, his name is spelled in similar nomenclature. That's why I was trying to like spit it out that way. Anyway, he had invoked, I think it's called the Montreux Convention. This dates back to 1936. Gives Turkey the ability to regulate the transit of naval warships between the Dardanelles Straits and into the Black Sea. Zelensky had claimed Saturday that Turkey had agreed to this, but Turkish officials immediately pushed back, saying that they had not yet taken a decision on the matter. But now it does appear that Turkish leadership are beginning to come together on this. So I'm going to show you this picture, and we talked about this yesterday. We were like, wait a minute.
One way into the Black Sea and one way out.
Right. So we had talked about this yesterday, and we were like, how does Turkey actually have that much control of the Black Sea? Well, we saw the picture of the Black Sea, and we saw the Aegean Sea, and what that little bit in between that I didn't know the name of until this morning was called the Sea of Marmara. And on one side of it is Istanbul, and that's the entry point to the Black Sea. So, if you want to know what the Montreux Convention is, it's an agreement that gives Turkey control over the Bosporus and Dardanelles Straits. It regulates the transit of naval warships. The convention guarantees the free passage of civilian vessels in peacetime and restricts the passage of naval ships not belonging to Black Sea states. Terms of the convention have been the source of controversy over years, most notably about the Soviet Union's military access into the Mediterranean Sea. So they really do have the ultimate say-so. They're the gatekeeper of the Black Sea, if you think about it, because they control the whole southern coast of it. Like, their country borders the whole south of the Black Sea anyway.
They're the gatekeeper and the keymaster.
Yeah, because they have the opening port at the Aegean, and they have the opening waterway into the Black Sea through Istanbul. Let's see. This was signed on July 20th, 1936. It's named after the palace which it was signed in Switzerland. The convention permitted Turkey to remilitarize the Straits. It actually went into effect on the 9th of November, and was registered in the League of Nations Treaty Series on the 11th of December, 1936. It still remains actively enforced today. So, what they had
Didn't
done,
the League of Nations fail?
right? But the doctrines are still valid, essentially. So anyway,
They
what they had
grandfathered them
done.
into the UN?
Well, what they had done is they dug into their playbooks, because apparently the foreign minister is a student of history, and he said, "Wait a minute, we have got this. We should use this, and we might be able to put a stop to this a whole lot sooner." Because if you think about it, right, anything that the Russians had already in the Black Sea is all they're going to get, because they're not going to take the North Fleet and bring it all the way around through the Med and into the Aegean and into the Sea of Marmara and then into the Black Sea. They can't now. They can try. But the Turkish Navy will meet them on the Aegean end. And then they'll probably meet them in the Sea of Marmara, where they will be continually battered by artillery from both sides, because they own both sides of the Sea of Marmara. And then when they get to Istanbul, it's over. Nothing is getting through that. Like, Russia would have to declare war on Turkey and level Istanbul to let them go through. It's not going to happen. They can't even take Kiev.
The chain across it again.
Huh?
They'll just string the chain across it again.
Well, either way, it's like they would have to go all the way around. Like, you would see them coming through the Straits of Gibraltar, right past the boot of Italy, right into the Aegean. The Greeks will be, like, looking at them. Sosis will just be pinging away like crazy. Like, it'll be the worst advance in military history, because everyone's knowing it's coming. They're like, we know the size of it, we know the scope of it, we know exactly where they're going, and we know where they're not going to get past. Istanbul.
And the problem is, at this point, if they bring any more in, the Greeks might actually start firing on them.
Everyone will start firing on them.
Well, no, because... Did you read what I posted? The Greeks, some Greeks got killed today.
Yeah, the Greeks actually have a reason to fire on them now.
Yeah, they got a.
Wait. Greeks versus Russians?
Yeah.
It sounds crazy, doesn't it?
Well, the Greeks are kind of crazy.
What's next, Italy?
Well, this might be a joke in bad taste, but if it's the Greeks versus the Russians, you have a military who don't know how to fight a war properly versus a military who can't afford to fight a war properly. So,
but
which one are we talking? Which one's which?
No, but Sean, you know what's funny? Imagine if the fucking Greeks were the 300 versus the Russians.
300 naval cannons versus the Russian Navy. Anyway. Sorry, I'm not trying to make a mockery of this.
No, but it just shows their strength. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, and this is actually good on you, Turkey. Honestly, like, you found a way to involve yourself into essentially what is turning into a global conflict, and you have become a key player in this now. So yeah, good on you. Turkey was getting some bad... I knew you guys
still had some Ottoman left in you.
Turkey was getting some bad press for, all that stuff going on in the Middle East and Syria and everything. But, honestly, this is a complete about-face when it comes to, like, geopolitical clout.
They still got some Ottoman left in them.
Yeah. Wait a minute. So who's paying the bakshish?
Shh. We don't talk about that.
No, you have to talk about that. Somebody's getting paid. That's why this is happening.
Oh.
For those of you who don't know what bakshish is, BAKSHIH, I will challenge you to go look that up yourselves. It is a common business practice in Turkey, and it's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. I know I'm making it sound negative, but it's actually not. It's essentially their version of one hand feeds the other. So, anyway. Let's move on. So now it is for... Oh, okay, so this is actually happening in the United States. So at 11:57 a.m. Washington, D.C. time, Eastern Standard Time, the U.S. is now beginning to spin up its international propaganda game as former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice was quoted as saying that Russian President Vladimir Putin appears both... sorry, let me start over. Condoleezza Rice said that Russian President Vladimir Putin appears erratic and is descending into something she has personally never seen before. Now, you have to remember, when she was Secretary of State, she had met with him over a dozen times face to face. So she's got a pretty good idea of who the man was. But, to be fair, by the time Condi Rice was in power, Putin has already had the experience of having to deal with 2 presidential administrations. Now, you remember we talked about this before. If he dealt with the first one, it was like a blind date where everyone's feeling each other out, right? The president that he's meeting is incredibly clueless because he's new to the job. And Putin is meeting a guy new to the job, and he doesn't know what he likes and doesn't like. He doesn't know where he's supposed to touch. There's no heavy petting. There's no blowing in the ear. This is all metaphor, by the way. It's a blind date. The second presidency, if it's an incumbent, it's just more of the same, but with maybe reaching second base. But if he catches a guy during a midterm who gets defeated, or if he caught a lame duck on the first half and then the second half, he's got a new guy twice. So now he's mastering the blind date. By the time he got to the administration that Condoleezza Rice was a part of, now he knows the motions of the ocean. He's taken her to third base. He's got his hand up her skirt, right? So, he's coming off as assertive and intelligent and cunning and maybe even a little charismatic, right? Because he's getting good at this. So what she says that she's seeing now is very different from the man she knew before. She's starting to help push this narrative that Putin is an old man becoming unhinged. You're going to see this more and more in the media. They're going to push this, and they're going to piss him off by doing this. They're going to be like...
I mean, his speech from Monday did that.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, right? They're going to keep pushing this narrative that... Don't you guys find it funny that the person who keeps saying he needs to denazify a country is acting as bent and twisted and almost Parkinson's infested like Adolf Hitler himself? Like, they're breaking, Godwin's law? This whole conflict is just one giant, violation of Godwin's law. As soon as Hitler was brought in, the whole thing should have been over. Like, all of their opinions are now invalid. I mean, you can use that on everybody else. You should be able to use it on Putin, too. He's like, I need to denazify. It's like, you shut your borscht-eating mouth. Like, what would you know about Hitler? Anyway.
He was a psychopathic lunatic.
Right. Well, now he's modeling himself after it, apparently.
Well, so was every other Russian leader that he followed and idolized as a kid.
I think Putin mostly followed Stalin's example.
Yeah, no shit. You think?
No, I'm thinking more like Khrushchev.
Nah, Khrushchev...
Because he's in that... No, he's in that we will crush you mode right now. He's in that right now. I mean,
but Khrushchev was never acting crazy.
No.
Really? Khrushchev is the one that's saying, we will crush you.
He also kind of quieted down after that whole little almost causing a nuclear war thing.
Mm-hmm.
Stalin also, by the way, was a manipulator, a narcissist.
Stalin would have
killed
caused
more than 20 million of his own people.
Okay,
fine. They're all crazy. They're all crazy. That's the point.
Sean, there's a reason our the U.S. Navy calls rogue or just Russian subs Crazy Ivan.
No, that's when they suddenly turn.
Yeah,
to
it's just-
see who is behind them.
Oh,
Yeah.
You
that
mean
is right.
like Red October,
Hmm.
which is a rarity?
So anyway, where am I at now? Oh, okay. So she was like, he appears erratic, and he's descending into something she's never seen before. He's always, see, this is the part. He was always calculating and cold, but this is very different. He seems erratic. There's this ever deepening delusional rendering of history, and it's always this weird kind of victimology about what had happened to them. But now it goes back to blaming Lenin for the foundation of Kiev, Ukraine itself. Like she's a very good student of history herself too. Because that's essentially what he's doing without saying, he's not saying the quiet part out loud, but this is basically what it looks like. Condi Rice caught it. She's a brilliant woman.
No one's arguing that.
All right, so also noon Eastern Standard Time, Washington D.C. U.S. Embassy issues a communique saying that it's warning all Americans the U.S. Embassy in Russia released a communique warning all Americans in country to expect that any and all electronic and credit card transfers to fail after being expelled from SWIFT. Your orders to Ivan the Bear Tactical may be in jeopardy.
Yes, it may be.
I put that in there as a caveat, but yeah, like even the sellers on Etsy or whatever, if there's anything coming out of Russia, be aware that your transaction may not go through, and be aware that if it does, but they can't do anything with it, you might be out the money. So, caveat emptor. To the buyer, beware. Figured I'd have to translate it just in case, because there's some people out there who eat freaking mac and cheese and watch NASCAR, and they don't know what the hell anything about Latin is. So anyway, sorry, I said the quiet part out loud just now. No, and I haven't had any bourbon. Also, a lot of stuff happened at noon. The U.S. Defense Department recognizes the earlier nuclear threat escalation from Moscow and calls it both escalatory and unnecessary. We believe that it is not only an unnecessary step to take, but an escalatory one. That could make things much more dangerous. We have no reason to doubt the validity of this order, but how it's manifested itself is not completely clear yet. The Pentagon is still working to, quote, assess what this action actually means in tangible terms. The numbers, Mason. What do they mean? I mean, it's the same thing, right? You raise a nuclear threat level. What does it actually mean? Well, you're about to find out, because we're going to tell you what happened in Belarus later in the day. Like, I'm just building up to that. This is all foreshadowing. So then we fast forward again. So now it's lunchtime for me in Central Standard Time. So it's about 5 to noon, which would have been about 5 to 8 p.m. Ukrainian time. But it was already 3 a.m. Monday, Japan time. Oh, and I gotta get the picture ready for this too, don't I? Here's the picture. So the Office of the Prime Minister of Japan has decided to join the United States and all European allies from removing selected Russian banks from the SWIFT international financing system. This came from the Prime Minister himself, Fumio Kishida. Japan will also freeze all assets of Vladimir Putin and other top Russian officials, and pledged $100 million in emergency humanitarian aid to Ukraine. And this is the picture that shows Prime Minister basically joining the ban. So yeah, even the Japanese are getting involved in this now, because they can't ignore it. Because if you notice, China's been incredibly quiet the last 48 hours, haven't they?
There was it's funny. You want to go first, and I start?
Yeah, there was that sighting of a plane over Taiwan. That's
Several.
Yeah.
There's like 38 different incursions that day. I know which one you're talking about.
They're probing, but they're seeing how much pushback the world is giving Russia on this Ukrainian thing. I don't think they want to. I don't think China's seeing what's happening with the Ukraine, they're taking notes. They're not going to do this to Taiwan right now because that would only be basically jumping into the fire.
I have a theory on that, but go ahead, Warsaw.
I was going to say is the rumor has it that China's actually giving us info about the whole Ukrainian conflict. It was coming from Fox. I'm like, I don't think so, dude. Why would an enemy nation want to be giving us info to us?
Misinformation, possibly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I have a theory. So I'm gonna pause from the news part of this. I'm gonna tell you right now that this segment was brought to you in part by Reynolds Wrap, and E-Honda, But anyway, no, I have a theory. I think that maybe China is being very quiet on this because of one of two reasons. One, because they're seeing the failure of the Russian advance on Ukraine, and they're completely taken aback by their ineptitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, Xi Jinping is like, the fuck is going on? I thought you guys were a superpower. You're Soviet Union. You fought the right? Like Xi Jinping is like, what the hell is this crap? You know? I thought you guys were like elites, and I'm like watching a middle school basketball team play the Harlem Globetrotters. That's basically what he's either looking at it like that, or this is the scarier thought. Maybe he never thought that Russia was better than him at all. Maybe he thought he was the alpha the entire time. And he's just letting Russia fail. So then Russia asks China to help, which gives him unilateral control of the entire conflict at that point. Because he'll just say, well, if you need my help, then I'm taking all of it over. And you're just going to have to come along for the ride. And Putin's going to have to swallow that. Because he would have failed as a military tactician and leader because he had to ask what he thought was an inferior people to help him, right? I mean, like we said before, all of you have said this one way or another. Those two countries don't like each other, but they are having this mutual agreement not to mess with each other because they're going in opposite directions. It could be that Xi Jinping always thought he was the alpha on this, and he was just waiting for them to fail so he can create a dependence on China from Russia. Because let's be honest, China has a history of creating a dependence on China. Think of the trade deficits of the entire world to China. They have become the manufacturer of the world, and now he's starting to call everyone out on their debt. Now we're beholden to him. I think he's trying to make Russia beholden to him too.
Nice try. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't China have a conflict with the Soviet Union back in the 80s?
They've always had conflicts.
No, this was the 60s, I'm thinking.
Yeah, they've had a few border skirmishes.
It was something to do with the border.
They've had
back in the 80s. It would have been 79,
60s,
80s.
60s, 70s.
It was Vietnam. Which
yeah.
Vietnam kind of kicked China's ass.
Mm.
All right, so
because they kind of have a little bit of experience doing the whole guerrilla war thing.
I'm gonna take the tinfoil hat off now. It's just I was trying to theorize on why China's being very quiet, but you have to admit the silence from China in the last 48 hours is pretty deafening.
At this point, I think they're just playing the waiting game.
Well, I thought they were scared at first because the news broke that their call got intercepted, and they were like, "Ooh, hand caught in the cookie jar," right? So then they just said, "Let's don't say anything and just keep our heads down for a day or two." That's what I thought at first.
No, they wanted people to know about that call. They wanted people to know, but the Chinese are also cold and calculating. So don't think that they're not going to go and make any sudden moves and stir up anything unless they know all eyes will be on them.
Well, I mean, that's one getting into what Nice Trick said. I mean, it's not tinfoil hat, but like my worry is that with Russia, will they try to do anything sketchy in Taiwan? I mean,
that was the major concern. But seeing the pushback on the whole Ukrainian thing from like literally the world, I don't think China wants to get into that kind of situation at this point right now. Seeing what Russia, how hard how hard a time Russia is having with Ukraine, and then seeing all the backlash from every other country.
The problem with President Xi is he is a very hard person to read.
Xi Jinping, call him Winnie the Pooh. He looks like freaking Winnie the Pooh.
Well, still, I mean, we can poke fun at him, but I mean, at the end of the day, he is president for life of one of the most populated countries in the world, who can amass an infantry larger than the entire population of this country.
They don't even have elections in China, do they?
Huh?
Yeah, but the problem is he could only use that army in China. He couldn't move it anywhere else.
I ain't buying that anymore. Not when he has blue water ports on the east coast of Africa and the west coast of South America. He has been installing jump points all over the world in the name of, we're going to build your infrastructure for you, but don't worry, you don't have to pay us anything. We'll just build a port here so I have an entry point for a military incursion later should I ever need it.
Well, I mean, I don't really claim that China's looking at what's happening in Russia. I mean, those are two different beasts. I feel like if China does attack Taiwan, I think it'll be done far more swifter. But I don't know in terms of like I don't know. I just feel like comparing China and Russia is kind of China. Yeah, China and Russia. It's you're comparing. Well, when I say that, I guess China's economy is built, and it's not as big as China's. Russia's, I mean. So I mean, can China amass a military and just go and take it over within a couple of days? Yes.
No. They could conscript a military, sure, but they still have to train it. And
no, of course.
And if all of a sudden, like, satellites catch heat blooms all over parts of China where they're doing military drills, training a billion-man army, or I won't even say that. That's unrealistic.
Someone would fire a missile.
Let's just say they can conscript. They're a nation of what, 1.9 billion people. They can conscript 250 million able-bodied men if they really wanted to, and it would still take them, 8 to 10 weeks to train them for basic. If they had enough facilities to do it,
they wouldn't have enough guns or to equip them with.
You're discounting a country who had created a basketball court where the entire floor was OLED. They can buy whatever they don't have. Okay, they developed it and they built a basketball court that was an entire OLED panel, 8K.
They're not going to.
Nobody else did that. Nobody did that. They could literally draw the plays of basketball games on the court as the players are standing on it to teach them how to play. And they didn't even have to put the stripes down on the floor. They just digitally put them there, or they could just change the logo of the team. My point is that level of technology and innovation is expensive, and they did it, and nobody else has that. So if you're saying they don't have enough guns, they can fucking buy them, dude. No doubt about it.
Okay, we're getting off topic.
Point is, people underestimate China all the time, and I think they're actually quite dangerous if you think about it. If you really think about it, they're quite dangerous.
China's the Slytherin snake, and they can come up and crawl up your ass so you don't realize it. That's why they're dangerous.
China believes it's a dragon, not a snake.
Well, it's a serpent.
It's
a fucking serpent. It's a serpent.
They're both still reptiles. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, let's get back to.
Let's move on. I'm gonna take the tinfoil hat back off now. I'm probably boring people. And by the way, if you guys are in the chat out there, is the volume better than it was yesterday? Because I got chastised to death about how quiet it was, and I played it back, and sure enough, it was. So I hope it fixed it. I fixed it by this morning. Just leave a comment if it sounds okay. That way I know that I can keep this setting.
It sounds fine. Keep it.
We sound fine to each other, but to them.
I checked it from the other side.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, cool.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes?
You want me to send you a picture? I just came across. I did the video in honor of.
Maybe. If you can screen share it, and it'll come out clean.
Yeah, no problem. There's no blood or anything. But they captured a freaking AK-12, dude, and the Ukrainians are kicking their asses, dude.
Oof. Okay, they're saying the auto is fine too. Yeah. All right, cool. So we got both.
That's an AK-12 there, dude. Look at this.
Where's your picture? Oh, you sent it to me that way? I can't pull it up that way. You
No,
here, let me
screen share
just
it.
do like a screen share.
How do I can't do that.
Oh, man.
Okay.
I'll have to pull it up later. I did read about that though.
My says I thought dragons were
Avian. Maybe.
No, they're not avian.
Well, chickens are no, he's right because chickens are T-Rexes and T-Rexes are reptiles. So, anyway, well, why are we going back to that?
I don't know.
Sorry,
We're really off topic.
We're supposed to be serious. All right. So let me get everything back on the rails here.
Sorry.
Okay, so at my lunchtime, it's about 10 after 12. It was 8 p.m., so we are now officially at dusk, sundown. Expect night op stories from this point forward coming out of Russia. Russian media outlet TASS has reported claims that Ukrainian soldiers... Oh, yeah, I was waiting to show you this part. You're going to love this. Do I have the picture? Yeah, right here.
Okay.
So, TASS has reported claims that Ukrainian soldiers have begun using chemical weapons in the suburbs of Kiev. The reports specifically claim the use of phosphorus. Unable to stop the offensive of Russian forces, the Ukrainian army has begun to use phosphorus munitions on a massive scale near the Gostomel airdrome in Kiev's suburbs. Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov has told the media on Sunday. They fire 122mm shells with D-30 howitzers and missiles for the BM-21 Grad multiple launchers of Soviet manufacturer. The picture I am showing you is a Russian Willie Pete. And that's the picture up above is one of the shells that they showed was fired at them. Does it look the same?
It looks similar, but not the same.
It took me a long time to find a photo that looks close. And that's the standard issue D4 Willie Pete. And it does look awfully close. But then again, I mean, first of all, Russia broke the rules of war by invading a sovereign nation, right?
Yeah.
So then
they got caught using cluster munitions.
Yeah, and then they found cluster munition canisters, all across freaking city streets. So it was like, this is the pot calling the kettle black, isn't it? But this is how propaganda works too. Like, this is where Squib would basically say, this is propaganda. They're both going to say whatever they have to say to try to win the hearts and minds of those that they're still on the fence about. All I know is that round looks pretty damn close.
Well, I wouldn't, put it past the Ukrainians for using that. But look at what they're facing right now.
Well, here's the implications of this. That round burns everything, right? Everything. This round was fired.
Degrees.
This round was fired at Gostomel Air Base.
What's there?
What just burned down in a hangar at Gostomel Air Base? They may have fired a phosphorus round at their AN-225. Oh, perish the thought.
Well, maybe they did it to
the
keep Russia from taking it.
Maybe they did it so they could anger the pride of the Ukrainian people, saying, we didn't do that, the Russians fired that, and they took out our nationalistic pride. I don't know. That's how propaganda works, though, doesn't it?
Actually did do it.
That's exactly how propaganda works, though, doesn't it?
Because the Russians are trying to damage said Ukrainian national pride.
Well, I just think it's funny that the Russians are calling out the Ukrainians for using a Russian round built in Russia against them. It's like, wait a minute, that's too easy to say that maybe you just fired it instead because it's yours too.
Well, remember what Putin said. He doesn't recognize Ukraine as a country, so there is no Ukrainian national pride.
Right, so this is a Russian civil war in his world.
Uh-huh.
So then there's no violation because it's an international, it's the internal national war, right?
Conflict.
Yeah.
Well, didn't Putin do the same thing with Georgia? Like say, how they're not a sovereign country; they're just part of Russia.
Yes, he's basically refrying his last war. He's reheating leftovers of a war that he didn't win there either, right?
But what we're
Correct.
doing is we're taking Putin's words and throwing it back at him, to combat the propaganda.
He's not listening anyway.
No.
Right now, I think if I was to quote, what's his name? Garland Green. Right now, I think he's just trying to make it to the bathroom on time so he doesn't suffer the indignity of pissing himself. There, I insulted him.
Oh, no, he's past that point.
Nah, he's
I don't think
70. Or he's actually 69. He's not officially 70 yet. He's at that he's at that magic age where people begin to wonder if you're crazy.
Oh no, he's certifiable.
Putin.
He was cool in my book until this. Anyway.
Yeah.
What a shame. What a waste. So anyway, about 45 minutes-ish later, it's now 8:46. So we're definitely in sundown. The street lights are coming on if they're still working. This came from Lukashenko. So Russia is being pushed towards a third world war. This was being told by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. He told this to Russian media outlets Sunday, that he believes sanctions from the West have started pushing Russia towards a wider conflict. Now there is a lot of talk against the banking sector, gas, oil, and SWIFT. It's worse than war. This is pushing Russia into a third world war. We need to be restrained here so as to not get into trouble. Because he had added, nuclear war is the end of everything. This is foreshadowing for what I'm going to tell you in about, maybe 5 or 6 more little items I've got for the day. I just find it really convenient, the timing of all of this, and like what's coming out of his mouth, because he was setting the stage for a vote that basically perpetuates the very thing he said he shouldn't be doing. But anyway, we're gonna start blowing through the rest of these so I can get to that, because that's gonna be the apex of this whole day. So anyway, 9 p.m., 9:02 now. So a few minutes later, the mayor of Kiev, Vitaly Klitschko, he had done an interview and he spoke to the Associated Press, and he said that the city can no longer evacuate the citizens because they are blocked from every angle, which means the Russian military has now encircled the city. He goes, right now we're encircled, adding that the city is, quote, at the border of a humanitarian catastrophe. Right now we still have electricity, right now we still have water and heating in our houses, but the infrastructure is destroyed to deliver the food and medication. And with that, the real siege of Kiev has begun. They have surrounded the city, and now they're going to slowly starve it or choke it to death. So, about half an hour later, House Minority Leader. Now, this story annoys me to no end. It really does. Oh, and I forgot to show you the picture of this. But this was Klitschko during his interview. He's all dressed up in a suit. Looks like he had a shower and finally got some sleep too, which is good because these poor guys have been fighting for 4 days. I'm pretty sure they're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
Or hungry too. Don't forget.
Yeah, and probably pretty hungry too. Exactly. Okay, so about half an hour later, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, he's a Republican out of California, he explains that the 2 reasons why Putin raised the alert status for nuclear forces was, quote, because the war isn't going his way and that he's mentally unstable.
Well, no shit.
Thank you, Captain Obvious. I mean, like...
Right?
Was he just butthurt by the fact that his face hasn't been on camera for a couple of days, that he had to go out there and say something just so he could be on the record? I don't get that. Like, thank you for repeating the very thing that the media has been pounding in front of us for the last 4 days. We know. We know you're driving a narrative that the guy's losing his marbles. We get that. You were the one late to the party, not us.
Well,
anyway.
It could be he's trying to send a message to, I don't know, the Russian High Command.
Yeah, it's more of that.
Wink,
don't trust
nod,
your
nod.
leader.
Your leader is fucking losing his mind. Do you really want World War III?
Well, see, that's why I like.
Perhaps someone should remove him.
Sort of. Sort of. Maybe.
No, he's got something wrong. That could be going on right now with the Russian military.
Maybe.
Because what the Russian military is going to be good at is preserving their own asses.
Maybe. I mean, he's just...
They're not that stupid.
He's not doing as good a job as Marco Rubio did earlier in the day, though. I know what you're saying. He's like, maybe he's trying to convince, on the public record, hey, maybe you shouldn't follow that guy because he's crazy. And Rubio earlier had said, you shouldn't follow that guy because he's about to die of old age anyway, and you're going to be running for the rest of your life from Interpol. So it's like, it's the same message twice. It's just McCarthy was slow on the take. Anyway. So about 45 minutes later, now we're into the time that Arsenio Hall used to be on TV. So it's about 10:15-ish p.m. Ukrainian time. If there's a guy like Arsenio Hall in Ukraine, holy crap, that'd be cool. Anyway, Vladimir Zelensky again and Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, wow, that guy's popping up a lot today, isn't he? Have announced that talks will take place between Russia and Ukraine near Pripyat. Ukraine will send a delegation to meet with Russian officials along the Ukraine-Belarusian border, which is in the area of the Pripyat River. The president's office had announced. I left a note here as an opinion. This smells like a trap.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it takes a death of a leader in a smaller country that doesn't usually make a lot of news on the global stage to be killed or executed or captured or made a martyr of, to force all the surrounding nations to take sides and then give them an excuse to trigger off World War III. Because that's exactly what happened for World War II. Or One, sorry. That's how World War One kicked off, with the Yugoslavian. And everyone chose a side.
Actually, a Serbian.
Was it the Serbian that...
Archduke
Franz Ferdinand was visiting Yugoslavia. That's what it was,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And then Archduke Franz Ferdinand was shot, and then...
And everyone started picking sides. But they had been talking for years about tensions and military uprisings and building up the military and modernizing, and it was the sign of the times, and then all of a sudden they got the excuse they needed.
That was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, everyone got the excuse they needed. And this is sort of smacks of the same thing. It's like, wait a minute. The president that's beloved by his people in a country that had conflict but doesn't get a lot of global news attention is going to go to a peace talk summit to an even smaller country that nobody gives two shits about, that also happens to be run by a Russian puppet. And this is supposed to go, well, how? Like, this just sounds like a trap. Like, oh, by the way, you're not leaving. What do you mean? You're coming with us. Why is that? Well, I was promised a high cabinet position if I turn you into the president. Of who? Russia. Oh, shit. I mean, didn't that just smack of that? I know it's not like TV, but I mean, you got to admit, if it made it onto a TV movie, it wouldn't surprise any of us.
It wouldn't surprise me if one of two things happened. Either Russians hire somebody else, or even the Belarusians do it themselves.
Yeah.
They kill Zelensky right there. Or two, as you said, they just capture him and give him to Putin and see what happens.
Either way, that's
still...
then they
martyr him.
Yeah, he's going to be a martyr either way. If he gets killed, if he gets captured, if he gets paraded across the Pripyat River upside down on his feet.
It smells like a trap.
It does, the whole thing. Like, what was that stupid thing from Star Wars? Anyway, he would be there. He would scream, it's a trap. What was it? Akbar? Yeah.
Admiral Akbar is a trap.
Akbar? Yeah, he's probably screaming at the top of his lungs right now. Yeah, exactly.
It's a trap.
Exactly. Maybe he will be the escort for Zelensky, right? Okay, I'm being stupid. Anyway, I'm gonna stop that.
A little crazy here, but honestly, the situation does require some commentary, because at this point in time, when people are still fighting, why in the hell would you agree to peace talks?
Because this is also the other side saying that they will have peace talks, but then call up half of their remaining reserves to continue fighting. Like nobody
Yeah, 'cause
is
they're going to try and take
nobody
as much of the
means
country
what they
as
say
they
right
can.
now in this conflict. I guess that's a good
No.
way to put it. Nobody means what they say. Like each person is standing there with their right arm behind their back with their fingers crossed. That's what I'm looking at here. And Zelensky he might just be naive and get caught. And that would suck. Because for some strange reason, because of how awesome this guy has been, he may walk into this trap with his chin held, with his head held high and his chest puffed out, knowing he's going to get killed. Maybe he thinks my death will actually put an end to this, or start something that will put an end to him, Putin, right? Like that's what a martyr does, right?
It definitely will put an end to Putin.
I just hope I hope I'm wrong. I hope this whole thing just goes well. But let's be real.
I hope he calls it off because the Russians do something stupid.
Like someone put a Cop 357 4-barrel Derringer in his pocket before he goes to this meeting, just in case. Yeah, I know it's got the world's shittiest trigger, but whatever.
No, he'll have Makarov.
That'd be perfect.
He'll have
Makarov.
He'll have the Tokarev that Patrick still can't buy.
No, use the Ukrainian Makarov. There we go.
Anyway, an hour later, 3:15 Central Standard Time, British Petroleum, and the only reason I took interest in this story is because BP is like 20 minutes away from me, like one of their big offices. BP had announced that it is ending its partnership with the Russian energy company Rosneft. BP actually holds a 20% stake of Rosneft. And the the chief executive, Bernard Looney, will announce his resignation first thing in the morning tomorrow. So this is a case of non-sanctioned isolationism. This wasn't a sanction causing this. This is private enterprise growing a conscience, and this is popular right now in the media, so they're gonna come out smelling like roses. They're like, okay, it's gonna hurt us financially a little bit, but the world is gonna remember us for doing this. That's cheesy, but a lot of smaller players will do that. Even a lot of large oil companies, apparently. So anyway, a couple of minutes later, we're now, let's see, it would have been 3:18 my time, but it's actually 11:15 p.m. Ukrainian local. U.S. nationals were instructed to leave the embassy in Russia immediately before all flights out were canceled. This was called a Level 4 State Department order. What that is it's called a Do Not Travel Order. This is the highest advisory level due to the greater likelihood of life-threatening risk. During this emergency, the U.S. government may have very limited or no ability at all to provide you assistance. So basically what they're saying right now is, get out now before you become Afghanistan Chapter 2.
Mm-hmm.
Which is actually Saigon, Fall of Saigon Chapter 2. Essentially. This is the trilogy. Hey! Anyway. Yeah, it's the trilogy. Fall of Saigon, evacuation of Afghanistan, get the hell out of Russia. That's what it is. Because why, right? Why am I saying this right now? Because literally 4 minutes later, and I think the U.S. State Department knew this was coming, which is why they issued this before. They preemptively quarked the EU. At 11:22 p.m. Ukrainian local time, the EU announced that it is banning all Russian state media and all aircraft, effectively turning the entire continent of Europe into one no-fly zone. Yeah, that's why they want to get American nationals out, just in case of the connecting flights wouldn't be allowed to enter the airspace. And now, Aeroflot's probably not allowed to fly into Sweden or Finland either, after what they did. So where are they going to go? Across the North Pole into Canada? That is a flight path, by the way. And Canada does say it's still got its air open to Aeroflot, so maybe that's the only way out. Moscow across the North Pole into Canada. Maybe? I don't know. You decide. I'm not an air traffic controller.
Neither am I.
But I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express once. That's a really old joke.
That's bottom of the barrel, Sean.
Anyway. I gotta get the next picture ready. I think it's this one here. Bam! So what you're looking at here was a satellite photo that was provided at 11:30 p.m. Ukrainian local time. Now remember, the Russian ground forces typically have made most of their movements either at dusk or at dawn. But this kind of movement here is probably something they can do because it's just moving a column, right? So anyway, this satellite image was released showing a large double column of reinforcements moving into Kiev. And the significance of this was that prior to today, the statistic was that half of the entire Russian military forces that were deployed to handle the Ukrainian situation were actually in country, and the other half were in reserve. So the estimated number of total combatants was 150,000, meaning only 75,000 Russians were in the country, with an additional 75,000 held back in reserve. These columns began moving before midnight. So they are planning on an incursion to reinforce their forces in Kiev for a Monday morning offensive, essentially.
Yeah. Didn't they say the columns were like 5 kilometers long?
I can't verify that because
5.
the only other numbers I had for like a string of vehicles was a 4.5 mile long traffic jam for refugees trying to get out.
Right.
So
no, that's what the news story stated, but it's unverified.
It's
yeah.
unverified.
See, the problem with unverified for me is they could be pulling that number from the other story and just confusing it. So until someone actually says it, but that photo is that's a pretty large set of double column right there, because that's a satellite photo. So that's probably at least the span of a mile in just that shot there, and it doesn't look like it's thinning on either end. So it could very well be a 4 or 5 mile double row because.
Well,
go ahead.
Here's the thing, though. Where have we seen things like that go bad before?
Well, the highway of death. But the problem is there's not enough Ukrainian Air Force right now to do that. I'm not saying that they're wiped out. It's just
But they could do some serious freaking damage.
It possibly. Yeah. See, but the thing is like near the end of the by the end of the Second World War, the American 8th Air Force was like an iron cloud and curtain of B-17s coming over Germany, right? And like Adolf Galland was in a lot of trouble with Hermann Göring. Like they butted heads constantly, but you couldn't deny the fact that Adolf Galland was a fucking genius, and he was an ace, and that guy could fly anything with wings. And finally, instead of getting dismissed or executed, he was sent back because he said, "Look, we're about to lose this war. Let me start like a Jaeger squadron, a hunter squadron of interceptors, with whoever I've got left." So, he would go up with a flight of like 6 planes against 700 bombers. You know what I mean? And it's like this column here, with as much Russian air power as available in the area, against maybe 10, 20 Ukrainian aircraft, the odds aren't good. So trying to do the highway of death, probably not practical. Like somewhere in that column, there's like, I don't know, quad-dushkas or something, gun carriages, missile launchers, things like that. They're going to protect that thing. It just doesn't seem feasible. That, or maybe they just really can't. Maybe they don't have the weapons to do it. Maybe they don't have the right munitions to do the highway of death to those guys. I'm not sure how MiG-29s are outfitted.
Or you could do a surprise attack. partisan style.
I'm pretty sure Ukraine still has some strategic forces.
I'm kind of curious if they're not
So you could
blowing more
rain down
bridges.
some ballistic missiles.
We talked about that 27-year-old Ukrainian Marine that sacrificed himself to take out a bridge to stop the advance.
Yep.
How many more bridges do you think have they taken out since then to prevent those guys right now from getting into the city?
A lot more, probably.
And see, the problem is, this is the biggest problem. Kiev is not surrounded by rivers, meaning you can blow the bridges to the rivers that cross through the city, but there's way too many there's too many entrances to the city that don't even have bridges.
The Dnieper River goes straight through Kiev.
That goes right through the middle of the country.
It goes right through the middle of Kiev. Not kidding. Look at the map. It does.
All right. I'll entertain this because I'm genuinely curious.
Goes right through the middle.
You're correct. It does this double curve, like the shape of an S. When you said it, I was thinking of where it meets the coast, and it's way farther east. But you're right, it does go right up the middle. The thing is, actually, it depends on where they enter from, because the problem with Kiev is half the city's on one side of the river and the other half's on the other.
Yeah.
Sort of like Budapest, right? So, yeah, okay, you can blow bridges, but what part is command and control on? Because if it's on the side of the bridge that's still facing Belarus, then that's no bueno. But if it's on the opposite side, then that's super bueno.
I believe most of the government facilities are on the left side.
So it's on the side facing Belarus, so that's no bueno.
No.
That's super no bueno. They can't do that, unfortunately.
I'm just guessing, but from what I'm seeing on the map, it looks like it may be right.
I'm looking at it. I mean, I think you're right. Most of the government buildings are on the west side of the river.
Well,
no bueno.
East side, so
Sorry. Nice try though. All right, let's move on. Let's see. Let me take care of the convoy photo. And the next picture came to us via... I forgot where I got this picture from. But about an hour later, so now it is officially 12:26 a.m. Monday, Ukrainian local time, there was an announcement by the EU that they had vowed to send weapons to Ukraine's armed forces, including fighter jets. Ooh, and that's sexy looking. The jets will most likely be MiG-29s and Su-25s, which is actually a good thing. And I think we talked about this before we went on air today, is if you're going to give military aid to a foreign power, you're better off giving them what they're familiar with. So even though you might have a superior fighter, you don't want to give it to the Air Force of a country who's never seen one from the inside, because they won't know how to fly it. So you don't want to confuse them by having to retrain them. So thankfully, the EU has satellite nations that use the same planes the Ukraine does. So they're sending MiG-29s and Su-25s.
And Sean, so far, the Ukrainians do have Western Air Force bases that haven't been attacked yet.
I find that hard to believe, but I'll take your word for it. Because, I mean, okay, what you're basically saying is it's like...
I'm talking about the ones close to the Polish border.
Right, but the problem is the entire city capital is surrounded, and the Belarusian border sort of interferes with any Polish incursion. Because right now the refugees can't get out. That highway's been cut off to them. Or that road has been cut off to them. I remember that map I showed you yesterday. I drew that big purple circle. That was basically the line for the entire Russian offensive. And it sort of showed you how surrounded the country was. And they're all crammed into the interior right now. Yes, there are pockets of resistance out there. I guess what you're saying sort of is the equivalent of, hey, the Japanese are beating the shit out of Pearl Harbor, but Ford Island over there is still active because it's too small and it's under the radar and they don't think anybody's over there. If that's the case, okay, I get it. I'm with you on that. If they want to launch like 2 and 3 plane elements up there just to like harass and interdict. Perfect. Makes sense. It makes sense. That math checks out to me too.
So.
Ukrainian pronunciation is... No, I know, Al. It's just the thing is I saw it before as Kiev. It used to be spelled Kiev, and they went on this, like the whole world went on this tangent of let's rename everything. Bombay went to Mumbai, and like Point Barrow, Alaska took an Inuit name, and you're right. No, it really did. It really did. They put back the city names and things. And to be fair, he is correct. It's actually spelled. They actually talk it. They say it's Kiev, or Kiev, but it's spelled Kyiv now. In romanization or whatever. But you're right. It's just I'm old fashioned and I'm still saying it the old way.
I still call it Kiev.
Yeah, and honestly, most Ukrainians aren't going to hold it against you for saying it.
No, they'll just figure that's the American name. Okay?
They've got bigger problems to deal with.
There's really bigger hairs to split than
But I get it. I know what he's saying. I totally understand it.
We understand.
Onward, because I told Joe I didn't want to do this for more than 2 hours. Damn it, we're gonna do it over 2 hours, by the way. 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So this would have been 12:30 a.m. over there, but this actually happened here. The UN Security Council calls for an emergency special session. Okay, this is tying into what we talked about earlier. So the UN Security Council calls an emergency special session in the General Assembly. For what, you may ask? Public display of Russia's isolation on the world stage. 11 UN nations voted in favor. Russia was the only vote against, while China, India, and the UAE abstained their vote. Now, this was a vote just to hold the special session, right? 11 for, 1 against, 3 abstained.
I'm pretty sure the 11 win in that point.
It did. But here's the thing. It's the abstained that's interesting here. Because if you remember, I've been banging on this drum for 3 other days now. Didn't I tell you that India is scared shitless to commit to anything right now? They abstained. There's a reason they abstained. Because right now, militarily, they're caught with their pants down. There's a global conflict going on right now, and they are feverishly trying to modernize their navy, right? So right now, they're like not trying to piss anybody off because they're not ready for this war.
It's not just their navy they're modernizing. They're also modernizing
Correct.
their army too.
It's just the navy thing was the biggest thing in the news because they're building indigenous aircraft carriers and submarines now. And that's a big deal, and it takes a long time.
It's a tall order.
Right. So right now, they're keeping their head down because they don't want this smoke. They can't fight this war yet because they're not ready for it. That's why they abstained. They're just like, oh no. Maybe they'll forget we're here. Anyway. Why did you redeem? Sorry.
Patrick, stop drinking.
He hadn't started yet. Anyway. If that's true, okay. I just thought that's how we pronounced it, but if that's true, I'll take your word for it.
I mean, I've always called it Kiev. That's how
I always learned it. So anyway, let's move forward to 5:34 Eastern time. So I guess this happened on Eastern Standard Time. That's why I put the timestamp there. So 4 minutes after the council meeting thing. In a show of smaller victories and displays of solidarity for Ukraine, the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board voted to remove all Russian products from their state's shelves. So, like, you know how each state has the different taxes for tobacco and alcohol, and then they sort of have a council to say you can have this in the state, you can't have this in the state, you can't sell alcohol on certain days or whatever, stuff like that, right? So the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board basically banned all Russian liquor in their state.
So what you're saying is tonight would not be a good night to start drinking vodka.
You're in South Carolina. It's all right. Besides, if I drink vodka, I drink German vodka.
I haven't drank yet. So
I drink French and German vodka. I drink Grey Goose and I drink Kettle One. So I'm free and clear.
this is off-brand, so it's not Russian. I'll tell you that.
You're drinking like a poor, aren't you?
I'm not drinking like a
I'm just kidding.
Someone.
You had
I
that
didn't pay-
bottle of Blanton's. At least you have some taste.
Well, listen, I went to high school in Bourbon County. What do you expect?
I don't know.
You
I don't
also
know.
have
It's funny because I grew up and I don't drink the bottle my dad drinks. Well, no, I don't. I don't drink the bottle my dad drinks. I drink the bottle that his dad drinks, and he's scared shitless of me drinking that because he said that his dad turned into a monster, and I tend to do that too. I'm just genetically obligated.
Well,
Anyway, let's move on because we're already at 2 hours, and I still need to eat, and I want to go to bed.
you haven't had dinner yet?
No.
Oh my God.
Listen, I'm just proving to you my commitment to put this out here. And
All right.
I'm grateful that you all keep coming back, you the viewers and you the panelists. But when I took on this project, I wasn't sure if I can handle it. But I felt like we need to do this every day because this is something that's going to be in the history book someday.
That's why I keep coming back.
I just want to say that I had a small part in it. Coverage or whatever. Anyway, 5:35 p.m. Central Standard Time, which would have been 6:35 on the East Coast, which I probably should have timestamped because that's where this is going to take the most effect. Dow futures. So we're fixing to hit Monday morning on the stock exchange, right? Dow futures markets are looking really shaky with a minus 500 point drop expected the second the market opens. Now, once upon a time, that's devastating, right? But the fact of the matter is the market's now close to 36,000 for the Dow Industrials. A 500 point drop is a drop in the bucket, in all honesty. And, I'll expand on this. This comes on the passage of Russia's expulsion from SWIFT. Because, now investors are thinking of the long-term implications of this. Because that's what investors do. They don't think in conflicts. They think in dollars and cents. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ are also expected to take a 1.5% hit at the opening bell. So right now, it sounds bad, but don't panic. Because if you remember, on the first day of hostilities, the Dow took a 900-point hit at the opening bell. But by the end of the day, it actually closed like 90 points up. It was only a sweep of about 1.5%. It's really not that bad. Now, what had happened on the Russia Stock Exchange and what has happened to the ruble against the dollar, that hurts. That's the kind of you need to see a proctologist for the pounding you just took kind of pain. Because the ruble took a 40% value drop against the dollar in 3 days. And I think the market lost something $30 billion in a single day? That's sizable for Russia.
But he don't care about that. He don't care about the economy. It doesn't affect him as a leader.
Now he's quite possibly the richest man in Russia. They don't have a dollar amount on him, but if you take in all his liquid assets, he's probably one of the most richest people in Russia. He's pissed. He doesn't hide it well these days. He's pissed. This does affect him. It doesn't affect him in the immediate. It doesn't stop his soldiers from shooting bullets and moving tanks still. You know what I mean? This will hurt him in the long term, but in the short term during the war, nah. Doesn't hurt him at all.
I argue this is already hurting him just in the whole, the Soviet army used to be able to take care of things. He's being known for not right now this is proving that he can't take care of shit.
Well, you brought up a really good point before we went on the air. You said that that he was a spy. He was the head of the Stasi in East Germany during the Cold War. He was the intel man.
He's intel.
He was the we will extract intel man. He's not the guy who takes that intel and applies it to policy. Now he is in that position, and the longer this goes on, the more it looks like he doesn't know what to do with the intel he's given. or if the intel he's given doesn't go his way, he gets really petulant and belligerent.
And I hate to say this, and this is, and I know I'm not a military man. Okay, I've never served in the military. My grandfather did, and my uncle served, but I did not. You know, I got family that served even further than that. You know, down the line. But the point is that I don't know if if he actually went and even pulled in any former Soviet generals to help him, you know, plan this invasion, because it looks like this invasion has been planned, and you know,
He
and
had somebody.
out by
He
all-
had
all
somebody.
the-
He's not pulling an Adolf Hitler where he was unilaterally dictating every single aspect of his war. I'm pretty sure he's not.
Actually.
Yeah, but I'm at the end of the day, he
look at
still
how it's
defers to
turning
the guy
out.
on the ground.
But look at how it's turning out. I mean, a Soviet general would be able to turn this around, or at least mitigate losses. But right
Maybe.
now,
until we see it, we're just speculating that, though.
yes, I am speculating. I'm guessing even, but it doesn't look like he's using, you know, the right people.
All right, I'm moving on because the next one you're gonna love this.
Okay.
Because I'm bringing back Marco Rubio.
Oh,
Now,
lovely. More Rubio on our.
I guess actually wait, before I do that, I want to address something because Al asked a question that we talked about yesterday. He says, "Is there any chance Russian billionaires who are going broke in the market will take him out?" In my opinion,
not gonna have any balls.
Well, in my opinion, I think the answer is no. Because Putin was the man who made them billionaires. So they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. And even if they could,
in the short term.
well, even if they could, most of the people who are billionaires aren't mafia, right? They don't have a network of hitmen to organize that level of operation. I mean, you're literally talking about trying to kill the guy while he's in his bunker, right? In the Urals. That's some like triple X shit. You know what I mean? You have to hire you have to have some guy who like, jet skis in on a parachute screaming "Welcome to the Xander Zone." Seriously, and you got to have the bankroll to do that.
Is that before or after he jumped off of a bridge with a car and then jumped off?
Don't be a dick. Right? Yeah. No, but you see what I'm saying. Oh my God! It's the man who hates Glocks. Anyway. Anyway.
It just comes down to offering a general a big enough bribe.
Yes, and you know what? I'm not saying that's not possible because my dad was in the room the day the president of South Korea was executed. He was sitting at the table, and he was in the room when the moment it happened. And you were right. One of his own generals just stood up and took him out. You're right. That could happen. But if that op goes bad, then what's going to happen is that general is going to be beaten within an inch of his life, and then he's going to spill the beans, and then that oligarch and his family and his family's family and his uncles and his brothers and his little Yorkshire Terriers, they're all going to the Siberian salt mines together, wearing their spouses' heads as hats.
That's still a better alternative than World War III.
It's still dying. If that op goes wrong, he doesn't die.
Much slower.
Well, the point is if that op goes wrong, he's still not dead. So the war continues. And I hate to say this.
Which means you may not survive anyway. So.
I hate to say this, but I think he's been culturing his replacement already. Because suddenly, former President Medvedev has become very vocal again. And he's in good health, and I think he's younger. And I think that if anything were to happen to Putin, Medvedev would just fill in the blank, honestly, and just continue the legacy.
He would.
Yeah.
Well, what do you also think the odds are that Medvedev, sorry, I'm butchering his name, I know it.
It's okay.
Takes Putin out himself?
Oh, as part of a coup?
Yeah.
I don't think you would do a coup when your military is beaten down.
Medvedev.
I think that's the perfect time to do it.
Well, no, because if you do that, right, if you create a power vacuum in the leadership while your military has been beaten down and on the retreat, then you have no military to protect you when other nations want to invade your nation while they perceive you as weak,
Well,
aka China.
Think of it this way. He takes out Putin. He looks like an absolute Chad hero to everyone.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you're using the Kim Jong Un wins the Nobel Peace Prize for unifying the Korean Peninsula theory.
He took out the madman.
Okay, I'm with you on that. But right now, the things he's saying now already have shown his hand. Now, if he had just been playing the elder statesman, I would totally agree with you. But he's already pledged himself to be a Putin puppet in public, on camera, on the record. He's already done it.
And he very well may be.
You can't renege on that. Once the world saw you with your mask off, you can't slap it back on. It'd have to be somebody else. But I'm pretty sure he's the replacement. So anyway, let's move on, because I'm going to get to this tweet. You're going to love it. I guarantee you're going to love this, because I got to admit, where was this Marco Rubio when he was trying to run for president? Because this guy's awesome now. So, 7:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Marco Rubio takes to Twitter, and he announces that I'll just read the tweet instead. I will be filing a bill to sanction and issue a lifetime visa ban for any government official in the Ukraine who collaborates with Russia to govern any part of the country. And I hope the EU and every NATO nation will do the same. He just nipped in the bud co-conspirators and underminers within the Ukrainian government. He was like, if you capitulate and bend the knee to Russia, I will make your life a living hell. Where was this guy when he was running for president? Where did these balls come from? No answer, right?
No.
Where did this manhood come from? I don't know how a better way to say it. Like, good job, Marco Rubio. Seriously, like, he's starting to say the things that would make me say this is what a leader looks like, right? This is exactly what a leader is supposed to sound like. Now you just got to do something about that Elroy Jetson haircut of yours, because nobody's going to vote for you if you look like that. I'm sorry. That's why you kept getting called Little Marco. Anyway, let's continue. 2:37 a.m. Monday Ukrainian local time. So they did pull a night op, a late night op. But I think this was more of an occupation thing, not a combat thing. Reports had indicated that Russian-led forces have taken control of Nikolaevka, which is also sometimes pronounced Mykolaievka with an M. That's why I had such a really hard time finding the map for this, because it kept showing me two provinces near Vladivostok, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I'm going to do what Al says, and I'm going to use the Ukrainian pronunciation of Mykolaievka. See, I can pull that off.
You could be Russian. You could be plant.
I could be. This serves as a connector, this town. It has two meanings in history. First of all, Mykolaievka was actually the city that was used as the entry point for the Russian counterattack against the Nazis during the Battle of Stalingrad. Sorry, I know I said that as in the form of commercial or question. It's just, I think that's the part of history I was playing with. That was the staging area for the Russian counterattack against the Nazis in the Battle of Stalingrad. I'm saying that as fact now. Also,
isn't it called Volgograd now?
No. Oh, you mean the town? Stalingrad? Probably.
Yeah. I think it's called Volgograd now.
Petrograd.
They got rid of it.
Something. I don't know.
Volgograd.
I'll look it up later. So anyway, this also serves as a connector between two advancing Russian fronts. So you had the Russian forces pushing in from the southeast part of the country on day one. You were right. It's Volgograd.
So in Luhansk and Donetsk.
So, yeah, that's where they were pushing in originally from day one.
Right.
By day two, Russian Marines had pulled off an amphibious operation, I think a little over 100 miles west, because they were trying to go after the Dnieper River, where one of the biggest hydroelectric dams is, and it's also where the biggest freshwater river port that feeds the country is. And as you pointed out, and the river's quite wide, anything that goes up that river can go straight to Kiev. So it gives them a waterway in, essentially. So the Marines had come in that way, and then the ground troops came in from the Luhansk and Donetsk, and then this little area in the middle, Mykolaievka, that was taken today. So now those two forces are connected. So now they have, in force, the ability to push across the coast. They can take the entire southern coast if they want to. They can start working directly west, or they can start pushing northwest. It depends on what the field commander is being ordered to do. Because now you've got two field commanders who came together. One will have to defer to the other, and then they take their orders from, Uncle Vladdy, essentially.
Well, the problem is they lost Kharkiv, and they'd have to send troops to Kharkiv to take it back.
To backfill it? Actually, no. Kharkiv is in the northeast. That's a different contingency. But that's only 14 miles from the Russian border, too. And I can't believe I didn't get to this part yet. I thought I had it written down. Yeah, I do. It's the very last thing we have to cover. There's a reason why Kharkiv is not being dealt with as a big deal right now. The last the last update I've got for you will explain that. Okay. So let's push forward. Okay. So 6:41 p.m. So this is where I was thinking about having dinner, but then the stories kept coming, so I just sat here and I was like, nope, let's keep doing this. So 7:41 Eastern Time, Washington. The Office of the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, he makes an official announcement that there's an additional $54 million in humanitarian assistance that are going to the Ukraine. This was on top of the $375 million already pledged yesterday.
Honestly, if we're not gonna help militarily, we might as well.
$429 million in aid to Ukraine. Oil prices and gas prices through the roof in this country. Unemployment is still not good. Inflation run amok, right?
I know.
$429 million just appeared available and off it went. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
I'm not saying that it's not a bad thing to do. It's a good gesture. But then part of me is also like, well, this is just business. No, this is business as usual. We're buying loyalty like we always do. That's what that is, right? It's like we cut you this check. Now you owe us. That's what that is.
If you look at the last Twitter link I posted, and the war never changes.
You got to stop telling me to do that on air. I can't do that. I mean, I could. I just have to use my phone, I guess.
You go look.
All right, which one? The last one?
Yeah.
The last one.
Yeah, you can do it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, Sean, I'm going to screen share real quick.
Go ahead.
Let's see.
I'll highlight you so it goes all big, too.
Hold on. This is kind of serious.
Go ahead.
There.
Yeah.
Waiting.
NATO E3 headed towards eastern Poland to provide the Ukrainians with
AWAC coverage.
Yeah.
Nice.
You know what that means. NATO has made a decision.
NATO may have made a decision, yes.
Sweet.
Otherwise, that aircraft would not be moving to where it is.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So, this is the tweet. I large screened it for everybody so they could see what's going on. But
I love the layout. That's awesome.
They did it. They didn't. I didn't do it. So I'm just screen sharing. But yeah, things may change. And
the funny thing is, the Polish don't have E3s.
The Polish don't have E3s. No, so
but it's registered out of Luxembourg.
Well, that's the weird part. That's the weird part. Why is it coming from? Could it be coming from
it's a NATO-based aircraft?
Yeah, they can come from anywhere at once.
Luxembourg is part of NATO, isn't it?
I guess.
Belgium.
Yep. So, anyways,
never tell a person from Luxembourg that they're part of Belgium.
No, they're not part of Belgium.
They would turn their nose up, spill their cognac, and slap you across the face with their Bugatti watch on, saying, "Don't compare us to those pores." Just a thought. All right.
So,
anyway,
between that and the other one earlier today that came out that the EU is going to be providing them new aircraft.
No, I already said that part. MiG-29s and Su-35s.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, onward.
You don't think there might be some extra pilots showing up in extra aircraft?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not like when North Korea had MiGs that North Koreans were flying them. Let's not kid ourselves. Okay, so here's where the stories get scary.
Out of the enemy's book?
This is where the stories are going to get scary again. We were talking about the nuclear response. We were talking about the fact that this meeting at Pripyat is probably a trap. And then we were talking about how the Belarusian president seems to be talking about flip-flopping on nuclear responses and whatnot. 2:41 a.m. local time, Ukraine. Reports indicate that Belarus, in an emergency session, had approved a new constitution Sunday to end their country's non-nuclear status. The measure passed with a little over 65% of the votes in favor, and what this does is this not only allows them to have nukes, but this also allows Russia to park their nukes in Belarus, which it hasn't done since the fall of the Soviet Union. Why would Putin raise his nuclear attack status and immediately Belarus adopts a new constitution removing their non-nuclear status?
So Putin
on top of taking over Chernobyl and threatening any nation that incurs on his offensive, will see a level of warfare never witnessed before. You take all these pieces and bring it all together, and now you start to understand why the media says that we're dealing with a madman. Now it's starting to make sense in a very frightening way, though.
That's why I said what I said earlier.
So slots for a real-life Ace Combat should be opening up soon. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. Well, that's if you can get in before the Ghost of Kiev.
Which still hasn't been confirmed nor denied, right? Like, they honestly still don't know.
History is better than actually knowing.
Man. Nah, I want to know. I want to... Like, if I was President Zelensky, I would want to know, because I would want to drape that man in medals and name a holiday after him once this is over. And a city. That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. As punishment for your insolence, Russia, you are now going to give Belarus an additional 300 miles northeast of your territory to expand Ukraine. You will give up Crimea. You will give up your entire coast to the Black Sea. Ooh. We'll name Crimea in the honor of the ghost of... Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
There you go. All right. Final story. We made it. 2.5 hours. Damn it. 7:11 p.m. Central Standard Time, which would have been 3 a.m. 3:11 a.m. Not the band, just the time. My freaking email is going crazy all of a sudden. Anyway, sorry, I was waiting for that thing to stop beeping at me. 3:11 a.m. Monday, Ukraine time. So we're already into day 5. So I'll probably touch on this tomorrow, just as a recap. Airspace over Ukraine is still being contested amid Russian invasion. This came from a U.S. senior defense official. The airspace over Ukraine is still being contested as Ukrainian forces continue to fight back against the Russian invasion, according to a senior U.S. defense official on Sunday. That means that the Ukrainians are still using both aircraft and their own air and missile defense systems, which we believe are still intact and still viable. He did say this in an off-camera press briefing, though, probably because he wasn't allowed to say this on the record. Let's just be fair. Where was it? Where did I leave off?
And I bet you some of those air defense systems.
This was said by the official in an off-camera press briefing released by the Department of Defense. So he could say it, but you can't say who he was or how he found out about it.
Right.
Though they have been, as I said yesterday, there have been some degradation by the Russians. Roughly 2/3 of the Russian forces. Here's the other scary part with the numbers. The reason why, man, I forgot the name again because I'm tired and my brain is starting to fry. Okay, the reason I was saying that the thing in Kharkiv was probably not too critical to Russia right now is this segment right here. Roughly 2/3 of the Russian forces located along the border have now been committed inside Ukraine. That was an increase from 24 hours earlier when the figures were only half the forces being committed inside the country. That would mean that Russia now has only about 35,000 support or attack troops and support staff in reserve. So he went in, the initial number was 155,000? He committed half. So 75,000 went in day 1, 2, and 3. Wasn't going his way, taking heavy losses, not gaining ground the way he thought. He thought Ukraine was going to be, a pushover. Now he's had to commit half of his remaining half in. So now he's got 2/3 of his forces committed to this battle. That double column that you saw, the half of the half came out of the Belarusian contingent. The only other piece he has left is the piece
Southeast.
that's hanging... No, northeast.
Northeast, okay.
So the only piece he's got left is the one just north of Kharkiv. That's why he wasn't really in a big hurry to go back at that, because that's all he's got left.
Right.
But he's going to have to commit that too, if you think about it, because now he's got all his remaining forces pushing in on the northwest, and he's got his Marines and his original ground forces on the southeast. They're all moving in together. He has to take that northeast corner at the same time. This is not going to succeed without it. He's trying to build that jelly bean line, and crush it down into the middle. And if he has a big wide opening southwest corner, which is where Moldova is, because he only had 9,000 troops to start with, that means there's giant gaps in that line, which means there's a good way to break out through there. And if he doesn't succeed in the northeast, then he's split in two fronts again. And then after that tweet you just showed, I think some decisions have been made.
I've got 2 more pieces of news I want to go over after you're done.
Go ahead. I'm pretty much done.
Okay, I posted them later in the day, so you probably didn't get around to adding them in. But one of them, we talked about this, and I made a joke considering what my friend told his grandmother, because I have friends who live in Germany. I game with them quite often, and the thing is, the German government has officially committed 100 billion euros to defense spending to increase their military. And the joke was that, the last time they did that, the things didn't go well for Germany. And that was the joke, because last time they did that, we saw what happened. But
kind of like that meme I posted earlier.
Yeah, but the reason they did this is because earlier today, Germany reversed its policy on arming other nations. Because Germany has had a long-standing policy of not sending any weapons or supplies to other nations. They've reversed that, and
because they need it for themselves.
They're now sending 1,000 anti-tank weapons and 500 surface-to-air missiles from German military stocks to the Ukraine as soon as possible.
Well, you saw what Sweden did, right?
I didn't see what Sweden. What did Sweden do, Scott?
Sweden has committed 5,000 anti-tank rifles, or otherwise known as the Augusta.
They still use
5,000 sets.
They've got newer versions, Sean.
Still use that. They committed to 5,000 sets of body armor and helmets, and 135,000 MREs.
Well, the reason why Germany did it is they apparently there's been a lot of protests in Berlin and all over Germany in support of the Ukraine, and
that's what I think is turning the tide.
And the German government has decided to reverse its policy and go with what the people want, because if they don't, all those people will start rioting.
It's called the Raws. That's their new gun, Raws.
The Raws.
But they still just nickname it the Gustav.
Well, yeah, they have to. But the factor is that Germany's upping its military spending, and it's arming others. I mean, oh my God, I thought it was the 30s or 40s again.
Wait a minute. So, what you're all saying is this is the Third World War, or the prelude to it.
It's the prelude to it, because everybody and their brother is trying to help the Ukraine to
Does that
fight
mean
off the
right?
Russians.
No, it just means you weren't wrong.
I mean, you weren't wrong.
It means I was right.
Well, we all kind of.
You guys weren't wrong either, though. You guys were all in on this too.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
either way,
I said it on day one. We went from what was it? Team never gonna happen is now getting a really, really tough lesson in Team I Told You So, and I hate it because you don't want to be right on this.
No.
A lot of good people are gonna die because of this.
A lot of Russians are going to die because of this.
Yeah, but I said good people.
But
I didn't.
Savage. I'm just kidding. No, there's good people on both sides. Good people are pushed to do bad things. That's what it is. It's all in the name of patriotism or taking orders or how else am I going to make a living, which is what a lot of these poor conscripted bastards are actually having to deal with. And after saying that, I really do need to play this. Because I'm dead tired, and I've been doing this for 4 days straight, and they're 22-hour days with 2-hour naps in between, and I'm just beat, and I still have a 9 to 5 to go to. So anyway, I want to thank all of you for sitting down and taking the time to watch us today, because you took your time out on your Sunday, just like we did take our time on our Sunday. Like, I'm babbling because I'm just exhausted.
I already scheduled it, so.
So anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a regular here, welcome back. Maybe check out my other playlists and see if my other interests are of interest to you. If you think people that aren't here would like to see this, share it. Tell them I do this. Give them a link to the channel or the server. All the information's in the link in the description below. So anyway, I'd like to thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for day 5 of the War Room.